Chapter 310. Facing Ling Xiao. Jin Ming had no choice but to use 120% of his energy and use all of his strength. Otherwise, he knew that it was impossible for him to win. Ling Xiao felt that his body was being dragged by something and flew towards Jin Ming's hands. This move is interesting. When others were exclaiming, he was still in the mood to evaluate this move. Mammoth water spray. Suction and water spray were originally two moves used in combination. Suction could forcibly suck the enemy to one side. Of course, the prerequisite was that one's true essence must be strong. Otherwise, it really could not be done. Water spray could condense the true essence to a point and directly blast the enemy out. The lethality was terrifying, even more powerful than Mammoth Impact and Mammoth Trample. Ling Xiao could feel that Jin Ming's true essence condensed on his fists. That terrifying power even attracted the surrounding air, forming a small vortex. This was not a joke, even if he did not experience it. Ling Xiao knew that this attack was very powerful. 9 demons, divine, art demonization. On the basis of the heavenly dragon golden body, Ling Xiao's body began to rapidly demonize, and a layer of dark energy barrier appeared on his body. Boom! The power of Jin Ming's fists poured out completely, in the situation of close proximity. First, the heavenly dragon scale armor began to shatter. Then, the Demon King's demonized body also began to fall apart. Ling Xiao felt as if his body had been hit by a mountain moving at high speed. His body flew out more than 100 feet away, and then somersaulted a few times in the air before finally landing on the ground. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Ha ha ha, satisfying. Tung tung tung. Although Jin Ming took the initiative to attack, Ling Xiao's heavenly dragon scale armor had a rebound effect. Therefore, after he blasted Ling Xiao away, he himself also retreated 7 or 8 steps in a row. He felt his qi and blood churning and was very uncomfortable. His expression became extremely unsightly. In fact, it was understandable. Originally, he thought that such a sudden attack would be enough to completely kill Ling Xiao. However, from the looks of it, Ling Xiao seemed to have only suffered some minor injuries and was not in a serious condition at all. Not only that, but what he could not accept the most was that he had heard that Ling Xiao was actually an expert in swordsmanship. But until now, Ling Xiao had not even drawn his sword when facing him. Fear began to grow in the depths of his heart. He felt uneasy. In fact, this was very normal. When you attacked an opponent with all your strength, you would find that the opponent could always easily dissolve your attack. Not only that, but this opponent had yet to use his true attack method. Whoosh! The ice dragon sword appeared in Ling Xiao's hands, flashing with a dense cold light. This was his first time using a treasure-grade weapon, and he felt that it was indeed much stronger than a fine-grade or mortal-grade weapon. Although I don't like you, you've played with me for so long. Let me use my sword to send you out of this world. I'll give you some face. With the treasure in his hand, Ling Xiao's aura suddenly changed. If it was said that he was like a Vajra with a strong defense before, then at this moment he was more like an unsheathed sharp sword. Cold light shot out in all directions and killing intent soared to the sky. Goo! Jin Ming swallowed his saliva. Although he wanted to refute, he couldn't. The strength of his opponent was definitely beyond his expectations. It seemed that he really couldn't hold back in the slightest. He took a deep breath, and a pair of shining gloves appeared on his hands. Without a doubt, from the aura, this was also a treasure-grade treasure. In terms of martial tools, both sides were of the same grade. Whoever won or lost would completely depend on their performance and their own strength. At the top floor of the Desperation Tower, the 2 people who were fighting temporarily stopped and took out their weapons. On one side was the ice dragon sword. On the other side was the ivory gloves. Downstairs, the onlookers were all indescribably surprised. From the start of the battle until now, Although Ling Xiao was also injured, it was obvious that he was not suppressed by Jin Ming. On the contrary, he even faintly held the advantage. Especially after receiving Jin Ming's terrifying series of attacks, he actually only spat out a mouthful of blood. This was simply a true monster. This Ling Xiao is too terrifying. He actually has the strength to match Jin Ming's Qi Gu. Nonsense. Jin Ming hasn't used his full strength yet. He should only be using about 80% of his strength. You're the one talking nonsense. Didn't you see that Ling Xiao had only just drawn his sword until now? His most terrifying thing is his sword technique. That's right, I always have an illusion that Ling Xiao is still preserving his strength. Impossible, then how strong is he? Could it be that he is already a transcendent realm martial artist? But his cultivation seems to be only at the peak of the 8th level martial vein, right? I keep feeling that something is wrong. The moment he attacks and defends, there seems to be the aura of the peak 9th level martial vein. But I don't know if it's his aura. Haha, what you said is possible. When Ling Xiao entered the sect, he was only at the late 8th level martial vein. It has only been a month. Even if he is a genius, it would be good if he could advance to the early 9th level martial vein. Peak 9th level martial vein? What a joke. I also think it's impossible. Many martial artists at the peak of the 9th level martial vein have died in the Desperation Tower. It's very likely that it's the remnant aura. No matter how the crowd discussed, their opinion of Ling Xiao had already changed. Ling Xiao's strength had already been automatically classified by them as the top 3 in the outer sect. Originally, they thought that he was stupid and ignorant to court death, but it had become a dazzling performance. From the beginning until now, the 2 people in the Desperation Tower had only exchanged 7 or 8 moves, but it was obvious that they had both gained and lost. But the next step was the key. Snow Lotus Sword Art, Ice Heart. Snow Lotus Sword Art, Flying Snow. After the 4th move, Ice Heart, was the first move, Flying Snow. Ling Xiao's martial soul quickly changed. A dark cloud shrouded the top of his head. The cold wind was bone-chilling, and snowflakes fell from the dark cloud. He slowly raised the ice dragon sword in his hand. It seemed like an inadvertent movement, but it gave off an extremely terrifying pressure. Jin Ming even felt his movements become sluggish and stiff. On the sword blade, ice-cold true essence condensed rapidly. This sword was as fast as lightning. The sword trembled like a dancing snowflake. However, the gentle snowflakes were like a deadly weapon that took away lives. It seemed like it could completely reap all life. What was even stranger was that Ling Xiao seemed to have integrated into the whole of nature as he stood there. That kind of powerful force made people feel incomparably terrified. This kid actually comprehended the use of force. Yuan Venerate's eyes lit up in pleasant surprise. The so-called force was a very high-level method of using martial techniques. It could borrow the momentum of nature to increase the power and aura of one's moves several times and become very terrifying. Some people could borrow the force of the mountain. Some people could borrow the force of the wind. Some people could borrow the force of the terrain. Chapter 311. Force was not something that could be learned. It could only be comprehended through constant battles. In other words, it depended on one's comprehension ability. Ling Xiao's momentum was only the most basic form of borrowing momentum. He borrowed the momentum of the snowy sky to make his sword faster and fiercer, giving his opponent more pressure. But this already gave him a huge advantage, because his opponent was not looking at him as a person, but as a violent snowstorm. I can only borrow 10% of it. Ling Xiao sighed. He had only comprehended the use of momentum after coming to the Yuehua school. Although he had occasionally used it before, it was unconsciously. Now that he was actively using it, it was naturally easier to master. Ice Heart and Flying Snow were already terrifying enough. Now, with the addition of 10% of momentum, this move was obviously more powerful. Although many people in the audience had seen this move of Ling Xiao's, they all had the same feeling. This move was several times more powerful than before. Mammoth's desperate move. This move contained the characteristics of Mammoth Impact, Mammoth Stomp, and Mammoth Spray, just like its name. This was a move of desperate move. Jinming knew that he could not be kind today. So even if he died, he would drag Ling Xiao down with him. The terrifying power expanded again. The ruins around him kept exploding. That was the result of his uncontrollable vital essence. The reason why he used Desperate Move was that he could not control it. It would hurt others and himself. It was a way of dying together. Boom! There was a thunderous explosion. Two terrifying forces collided in the air. A sword, a pair of fists. At the moment of collision, the ruins where the two were standing exploded again and sank a lot. Their bodies fell almost at the same time. Smoke and dust filled the sky, except for the warriors with better eyesight and strength who could barely see what was going on. The rest of the people were scratching their ears and cheeks anxiously. At the critical moment, they could not see the battle. It was simply too uncomfortable. Drip, drip, drip. It was the sound of blood dripping. Only martial artists with excellent hearing would be able to hear such a sound. The smoke and dust finally dispersed. Ling Xiao was the first to appear. He floated in midair, the sword in his hand still pointed at Jinming. Blood dripped from the sword. However, there was not a single wound on his body. Looking at Jinming again, he was in a sorry state. There were many cracks on his body. Even though his body's regenerative abilities were terrifying, these wounds seemed to have been invaded by some special energy. No matter how hard he tried, they couldn't heal completely. The blood continued to flow. If this continued, Ling Xiao wouldn't even need to attack. He only needed to avoid Jinming's attacks, and Jinming would die from blood loss. Hiss! Everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Jinming, the Outer Sect's third strongest master, who was known for his defensive prowess and had once defeated 2 First-Order Transcendent Realm Masters, was now in such a sorry state. The powerful defense that he was so proud of was broken just like that. From today onwards, Ling Xiao will become the strongest person in the Outer Sect. Elder Bai looked at the young man excitedly. No matter what, this young man was accepted into the Yuehua school by him. The young man's outstanding performance was beyond his expectations. However, this was a good thing, and he should be happy. Elder Bai, you're wrong. Jinming is only ranked 3rd in the outer court. There are still 2 people ranked 1st and 2nd above him, especially Wang Feng, who is ranked 1st. He has never lost to Jinming. Elder Black disliked Ling Xiao very much. Seeing this young man's outstanding performance, he had the evil thought of destroying him. Elder Black, what you said is ridiculous. Elder Bai said coldly, you should have seen the battle between Wang Feng and Jinming. Wang Feng's movement technique is the best in the Outer Sect. Of course, this was before Ling Xiao appeared. The reason why he could beat Jinming was because of his movement technique. He kept dodging, which exhausted Jinming and forced him to admit defeat. There's also that kid who's ranked 2nd. He's not even worth mentioning, because he's relying on an immortal grade artifact. Without that, he wouldn't be a match for Jinming. Ling Xiao's movement technique is stronger than Wang Feng's, and his attack power is not even weaker than the 2nd kid who possesses an immortal grade artifact. After all, that kid was not able to put Jinming in such a sorry state, but Ling Xiao did it. Elder Black snorted. Humph, what's the point of you saying so much? In any case, the young people nowadays don't admit defeat. As long as he, Ling Xiao, doesn't defeat Wang Feng and the 2nd-ranked youth, he can't be said to be the strongest in the Outer Sect. It's because you've been blinded by wealth that you judge the problem against your conscience. Elder Bai said coldly. He was too lazy to continue explaining. As long as it wasn't someone who had enmity with Ling Xiao, after seeing today's battle, they wouldn't doubt Ling Xiao's terrifying strength. While the 2 of them were talking, the situation upstairs changed again. Ling Xiao actually kept the ice dragon sword. How hateful! You want me to bleed to death? Jin Ming roared angrily. His defeat was set in stone. It was only a matter of time. If Ling Xiao chose to continue dodging and tire him to death, then he really wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Tired to death? You really didn't notice. Ling Xiao shook his head and said, "Do you think that my previous attack didn't hurt your body and had no effect? Once the damage to the soul accumulates to a certain extent, it can still be fatal. So right now, I only need one punch to kill you." Divine Prison King Fist, Soul Snatching. Soul Snatching was a pure soul attack. It did not cause any damage to the body, but it could trigger all the accumulated damage in the soul. Ling Xiao had used the Divine Prison King Fist to fight with Jin Ming because he knew that although Jin Ming's body was strong, his soul wasn't that strong. However, not being strong did not mean that he was weak. After all, this fellow was someone who possessed a complete martial spirit. His soul was still much stronger than an ordinary martial artist's. Furthermore, the mammoth blood seemed to have wrapped around this fellow's soul with a layer of blood-red membrane. Just relying on a single soul snatching was not enough. Only when the damage had accumulated to a certain extent would soul snatching be able to decide the outcome of the battle. Why didn't he just use the Snow Lotus Sword art to kill Jin Ming? Because he couldn't. Jin Ming's body was too strong. The combination of Flying Snow and Ice Heart was already Ling Xiao's fastest and most destructive move. However, it was only able to heavily injure the opponent. If he used the same move again, the effect would be about the same. It really didn't make much sense. As for soul snatching, it could kill Jin Ming cleanly and without any hidden dangers. In that instant, Jin Ming felt a huge roar in his head, as if someone had rung a large bell in his head. Then, his expression gradually became sluggish. His eyes gradually became dull. Then he slowly fell to the ground. Bang! Chapter 312. Ling Xiao took advantage of the smoke to collect Jin Ming's martial spirit, the mammoth martial spirit. This was another animal-type martial spirit, but it belonged to the immemorial demonic beast series. If this kind of martial spirit was sold outside, it should be very expensive. Ling Xiao hesitated for a moment, then gave this thing to the Thunder Bear martial spirit to devour. The effect of devouring a martial spirit of the same type was better. In just an instant, the Thunder Bear martial spirit was promoted from a transparent body to an illusory body, and it even faintly had the aura of an immemorial demonic beast. This was an unexpected discovery. It turned out that not only could some martial spirit characteristics be obtained by fusing, even devouring would occasionally leave behind some advantageous characteristics. At this point, Ling Xiao's illusory martial spirit had become three: the Dark Cloud martial spirit, the Blood Shadow martial spirit, and the Thunder Bear martial spirit. As for the Ghost Ship martial spirit and the Giant Sword martial spirit, they were still in the transparent body stage of the complete soul. Transparent body, illusory body, and solid body. A newly formed complete martial spirit only had these three stages. However, it would be stronger as it went up. Reporting to the Tower Master, Jin Ming is dead. After checking Jin Ming's situation, the guard of the Desperation Tower reported to the Tower Master, dead. Could it be that Ling Xiao used a soul attack? It's really possible. This kid's soul, body, and internal force are all well developed. It's too terrifying. Hearing that Jin Ming was dead, the arena immediately fell into chaos. Jin Ming died just like that, which many outer sect disciples couldn't accept and couldn't understand. It was as if they had suddenly woken up from a strange dream. Congratulations to Ling Xiao for winning all 4 death challenges today. He will receive a special reward. They couldn't see the Tower Master's expression under the ghost mask, but many people thought that he should be smiling. Special reward? Ling Xiao was stunned for a moment. Previously, when he proposed the death challenge, the guard at the Desperation Tower said that there was no reward for this challenge. You may be wondering why there is a reward. The Tower Master of the Desperation Tower laughed. Because I'm happy today. This was probably the willfulness of an expert. Just because he was happy he made such a promise. Ling Xiao, come to the Tower of Death by yourself tomorrow night. I will tell you what the reward is. Don't worry, you won't be disappointed. After saying that, he actually leaped and disappeared into the mountains in an instant. She was truly capricious. She came and went as she pleased. However, after he left, everyone's attention was once again placed on Ling Xiao. He had killed 4 people in one battle. Moreover, all of them were once or were currently ranked in the top 10 of the Outer Gate. After this incident, Ling Xiao's fierceness could be considered to have been completely formed in the Outer Sanctum. An elusive movement technique, an incomparably powerful defense, and a terrifying soul force. This fellow is too frightening. Under the Transcendent Realm, he was invincible. No, I'm afraid even a First-Order Transcendent Realm cultivator may not be his opponent. Elder Bai's expression was agitated. Although this kind of strength was nothing to him, it was definitely a piece of unpolished jade. As long as he polished it slightly, it could be polished into the most outstanding gem in the world. There was nothing that could make him happier than cultivating a genius martial artist. After all, as an Outer Sanctum elder, he was engaged in such things. The world of sex was very big, much bigger than the secular world. Although the Yuehua school was one of the 12 sects, it was only in the human race's sacred dynasty. There were more than 10 million terrifying sects on the heavenly dragon continent. If one wanted to gain a foothold in such a world, it would be impossible without the appearance of a genius with outstanding potential. After all, the older generation was old and might even be abandoned by time. Only these young people were the future. Do you think Ling Xiao can beat Wang Feng? It's hard to say. Wang Feng, who is ranked first, has been in seclusion these days. It has already been 3 months. Who knows how much his strength has improved? Yes, based on his past strength, Wang Feng shouldn't be Ling Xiao's opponent. What about Jian Xing, who is ranked second? Oh, he's also a good swordsman. It's said that he has an immortal grade artifact in his hand. It's extremely sharp. His strength is not inferior to Jin Ming's. He once killed a Transcendent Realm, first-level cultivator during a mission. From the looks of it, the top 3 are still monsters. Ling Xiao may not be a match for them. After the death challenge, Ling Xiao's ranking became the focus of discussion among the Outer Sanctum disciples. Ling Xiao, there is no enmity between us, so I don't want to fight you to the death. But your strength really excites me. Come and challenge me. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded in the crowd, attracting everyone's attention. It's Jian Xing, who is ranked second in the Outer Sanctum. They both use swords. Who is stronger? It should be Jian Xing. After all, he has an immortal grade artifact sword. I think it's Ling Xiao. Weapons are only part of one's strength. Ling Xiao's combat ability is stronger than Jian Xing's. Shut up. We'll know who's stronger after the battle. Stop talking nonsense. Jian Xing unsheathed his sword, and the Outer Sanctum disciples immediately shut their mouths. Why waste time? Since everyone is here today, let's decide the outcome with a single sword. As soon as Ling Xiao finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared from the top of the Desperation Tower. When he reappeared, his finger was pressed on Jian Xing's forehead. If this is a sword, you're already dead. Jian Xing was sweating profusely. His originally fair skin instantly turned deathly pale. I lost. I admit that you're stronger than me. If he wanted his opponent to admit defeat, he had to show his strength. Any nonsense was useless. Jian Xing was actually not inferior to Jin Ming. However, he did not have Jin Ming's defense. For Ling Xiao, this kind of enemy was easier to deal with. He could kill him with a single sword strike. Through the battle with Jin Ming, Not only did he have a lot of insights, his martial skill attainments were more refined, and even his cultivation had broken through to the half-step master level. This sword strike was stronger than the flying snow he used to deal with Jinming. It was just that he used his finger. He lost in a single move. Isn't Ling Xiao a little too scary? I'm afraid that Wang Feng, who is ranked first, is no match for him. Boom! Just when everyone was surprised that Ling Xiao used his finger as a sword to defeat Jianxing in a single move, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky above the outer sanctum. Someone broke through. That's Wang Feng's cave mansion. Wang Feng broke through to the transcendent realm. In other words, Ling Xiao is now the well-deserved number one in the outer sanctum, right? What a pity. I wanted to see who was the number one in the outer sanctum, but now there's no other way. Transcendent realm. Ling Xiao took a deep breath. He had only joined the sect for a month, and someone had broken through to the transcendent realm, although Wang Feng was originally the number one in the outer sanctum. Chapter 313. So. A white light fell among the crowd. Young man in white stood there, staring coldly at Ling Xiao. It's Wang Feng. Yes, it's the first-ranked Wang Feng. He really broke through to the transcendent realm. His aura is so strong. He's only 18 years old. How amazing! Once a quasi-inner sect disciple breaks through to the transcendent realm, he can directly enter the inner sect and become an official inner sect disciple. How enviable. But why do I feel like he has some hostility towards Ling Xiao? It's not just a feeling, it's true. You don't know, but Wang Feng and Jinming are sworn brothers. The two of them once worked together to kill a second-layer transcendent realm cultivator when they were out on a mission. Not many people know about this. Even so, he has now been promoted to the inner sect. He can attack an outer sect disciple, right? That's true. That being said, many people still looked at Ling Xiao with some worry. Guard, can I issue a death challenge to Ling Xiao? Wang Feng ignored what these people said and turned his head to the guard of the Desperation Tower and asked. Of course you can, but Ling Xiao has to agree. The guard of the Desperation Tower looked at Ling Xiao. I don't accept. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile. Coward! Wang Feng thought that Ling Xiao was an impulsive person and that Ling Xiao would accept his challenge regardless of the consequences. But now it seemed that Ling Xiao was smarter than he thought. Ha ha! I'm only at the peak of the 8th layer martial vein. You, a transcendent realm cultivator, have the nerve to issue a death challenge to me and call me a coward? Ling Xiao laughed disdainfully. Wang Feng, you can't issue a death challenge, but you can issue a battle of revenge. Elder He suddenly said, in the outer sect, a battle of revenge cannot be refused. It can only be postponed for no more than 3 days. Of course, there is a requirement for this battle of revenge. Your opponent must be your enemy, or the enemy of someone close to you who has gone through life and death with you. That's right, a battle of revenge. Wang Feng's face lit up with joy as he said, Ling Xiao, I declare war of vengeance against you. Wang Feng, you've already been promoted to the inner sect, so you're not allowed to fight with outer sect disciples. This is also the sect's rule. Elder Bai could not help but ask. He really didn't want to see an outer sect genius being destroyed like this. Killing was allowed in a battle of revenge. Of course, the condition was that one's best friend or someone close to you was killed by the other party. Since Ling Xiao had killed Jinming, he obviously met this condition. This was troublesome. Elder Bai, you must be joking. Although Wang Feng has broken through to the transcendent realm, he hasn't registered with the inner sect yet, so he isn't an inner sect disciple. Naturally, he can launch a battle for revenge. Or are you trying to shelter that little brat? Elder He sneered. Lan Yuer was about to speak at this time, but she was stopped by Ling Xiao. Wang Feng, I don't want to have a life or death battle with you, because I know I can't kill you. Ling Xiao looked at Wang Feng and said lightly, But with your ability, it's impossible for you to kill me. It's just a waste of time. However, since you want to make a fool of yourself, I'll fulfill your wish. I'll accept your battle of revenge. You don't need to go anywhere else. Just do it here." Ling Xiao was not even afraid of He Suo. So how could he be afraid of Wang Feng, who had just broken through to the transcendent realm? He simply felt that such a battle was a waste of time. But now that the other party was being aggressive, he had no choice but to accept the challenge. "Since you don't need time to rest, then don't blame me for being ruthless." Wang Feng jumped directly onto the Desperation Tower. This was a place for death challenges, but it was also a place for a battle of revenge. In any case, it was a life or death battle. Ling Xiao also leaped onto the Desperation Tower. His gaze slowly turned towards Wang Feng as he said, "Originally, you were ranked first in the outer sanctum. You could have used your status to be promoted to the inner sanctum. This is also considered a great honor. However, you should never have come to find trouble with me. Today, I will use my strength to shatter your hypocritical honor." Ling Xiao did not intend to hide his cultivation level in front of Wang Feng. After all, he could not hide it. He had thought about it. He now had Yuan Venerates, Yang Danlin, and Lan Yuer as his backers. He had outstanding talent in alchemy. If his talent was outstanding, he might attract the attention of the flame deity, but at the same time he would also attract the attention of the higher-ups of the Yuehua school. Geniuses were strictly protected in any sect. He did not believe that the flame deity could overturn the Yuehua school. Boom! His aura suddenly soared, and Ling Xiao released his own Jin Yuan aura without any scruples. Oh my god, this guy really hit his strength. The peak of the 9th level martial vein? No, this is the aura of a half-step master. How is that possible? He was only at the peak of the 8th level martial vein when he first entered the sect. How could his cultivation be so fast? Ling Xiao did not care about the discussions of others. His mind was now focused on this battle. With the ice dragon sword in hand, he felt very confident. Because he had just comprehended the use of force, he wanted to try it again. He could not let that feeling slip through his fingers. Humph! Although your aura is strong, it should only be 20% of a half-step master's cultivation level. Today, I will show you what it means to be a transcendent. Wind and Thunder Palm. Wang Feng did not move his body, but his right palm had already struck out. A terrifying aura suddenly shot out from the void. A huge true essence hand, wrapped in wind and thunder, broke through the air and went straight for Ling Xiao's vital points. Is this the attack of a transcendent? I wonder if Ling Xiao can block it. Ling Xiao quickly answered this question. Break for me. Ling Xiao's face was indifferent. The ice dragon's sword pierced the weakest part of the true essence hand like a poisonous dragon. Pa! With a crisp sound, the terrifying true essence hand immediately shattered and dissipated. Oh, I didn't expect you to know how to attack flaws. Wang Feng had never met Ling Xiao before, so he knew almost nothing about Ling Xiao. After all, when Ling Xiao joined the Yuehua school, he was in seclusion and had just come out. So what? Let's see how you break my wind and thunder consecutive palms. Wang Feng roared and struck out with his palms. More than a dozen true essence hands, wrapped in wind and thunder, shot out in succession. And this was not a simple continuous attack, but a series of attacks. The latter palm could automatically change the effect of the previous palm. This kind of control of true essence was really amazing. No wonder you are the #1 in the outer sect. Your methods are really outstanding. Unfortunately, you are facing me. Break for me. Ling Xiao's ice dragon sword shook. The second style of the snow lotus sword art, melting water, was displayed. This move could be used both offensively and defensively, and it had a large range. It was especially used to break this kind of chain or group attack. Chapter 314. Ling Xiao's current situation was a little special. Le was as if his body was enveloped by the lake water, and the lake water was as sharp and lethal as a blade. But any attacks that approached Ling Xiao were all directly minced to pieces. In an instant, the chain of wind and thunder palms were shattered and disappeared. However, the attack was not over yet. The water flow changed from the shape of a ring to that of a long river, turning into a water dragon that roared and pounced on Wang Feng. Ling Xiao finally fought back. Wang Feng was astounded by the sight. He had never expected that, even though he was a transcendent, he would not be able to end the battle quickly. Instead, he gave Ling Xiao a chance to fight back. He could feel that the power of this melting water technique was very terrifying. What shocked him the most was the phantom of the ghost ship that appeared behind Ling Xiao. The ghost ship sailed on a long river made of melting water, and it cooperated perfectly. Well, I'll call this move Ghost Ship Crossing the River from now on. It's stronger than pure melting water technique. After all, it's a move that's integrated with my martial soul. Ling Xiao muttered to himself. He had used Ghost Ship Crossing before, so this time he suddenly had the idea to combine the two moves. He did not expect it to be so smooth, and the performance was particularly amazing. Seeing the ferocious water dragon coming with the ghost ship, Wang Feng felt a sharp pain all over his body before the sword chi even hit him. His physique wasn't as strong as Jin Ming's, and although he had broken through to the transcendent realm, his physical strength was far inferior to Ling Xiao's and Jin Ming's. He had broken through using his internal chi, not his physical body. A strong killing intent appeared in Wang Feng's eyes. If he simply wanted to avenge Jin Ming before, then now he wanted to strangle Ling Xiao in the cradle as soon as possible. He could feel a great threat from Ling Xiao, which made him very uncomfortable and unbearable. Break! Wang Feng roared, and his true chi began to go berserk. Gusts of wind enveloped his body. His palms were actually absorbing these gusts of wind. A glaring ball of light formed between his palms. The surrounding airflow was swept up in an instant, then crushed and integrated into the palm. I didn't expect you to also practice the art of wind and cloud. It's just that you're much stronger than Yangcheng. They were both using the art of wind and cloud, but Wang Feng's boldness and power far surpassed Yangcheng's. That's right, this is the art of wind and cloud, but it's only at the transcendent stage. Wang Feng roared, and the ball between his palms shot out. It directly destroyed the scene made of water, and even the ghost ship exploded into pieces. Worthy of having broken through to the transcendent realm, the quality of his true chi far surpassed Ling Xiao's, and even surpassed Ling Xiao's sky dragon true chi. After the ball destroyed the melted water and ghost ship, it continued to move forward and flew towards Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao's expression was indifferent, as if he didn't care about this thing at all. Snow Lotus Sword Art's third style, Congealing Water. Ling Xiao's sword momentum suddenly changed. The melted water turned into congealed water, and the torrential river water that had been scattered instantly froze. The ball was also wrapped in the cold air and became slower and slower. In the end, it fell to the ground and turned into a ball of ice. However, the sword momentum did not stop because of this. Ling Xiao counterattacked again. As the ice dragon sword trembled, the martial spirit behind him changed again. The shadow of the blood shadow martial spirit suddenly appeared. His sword moves suddenly became strange and unpredictable. The ice that condensed in the air was like a sharp blade, attacking Wang Feng from different angles. Wang Feng frowned slightly. He was not afraid of these sword moves. His palms continuously struck out, causing a gust of wind to wreak havoc around his body. Thunder rumbled and the ice shattered. However, Ling Xiao's killing move was not this move. Ice Heart, Terrifying Finger. Ling Xiao, who was holding the sword in his right hand, pointed at Wang Feng with his left hand. Terrifying soul force condensed into a single point. It looked so thin that it was almost impossible to see with the naked eye, and a ray of light shot out from the congealed water. Uft! Wang Feng spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were dazed for a short moment. Kill! Ling Xiao knew very well that this move of his had succeeded because his opponent did not understand him at all. Therefore, he had to take advantage of this opportunity to get rid of his opponent. Otherwise, he would not have such an easy time the next time they fought. Stop, you vile being! At that moment, an earth-shattering pressure descended from the sky. Ling Xiao felt his entire body stiffen instantly. He was unable to move at all. This terrifying pressure was accompanied by a ball of fire, the flame deity. Ling Xiao had not expected that he would be so lucky as to make the flame deity attack him personally. How dare you, Mo Yan! Yang Danlin broke through the air. His cultivation base was not as good as Mo Yan's, but the Yuan Venerate on his shoulder was not inferior to Mo Yan's. When the two terrifying auras collided, Ling Xiao was finally able to catch his breath. However, he had also missed the best opportunity to kill Wang Feng. Old Hall Master Yang, this brat killed 4 Yuehua school disciples in one day and is still not satisfied. He wants to kill Wang Feng, who has just advanced and is still unstable. He is simply vicious. Leaving him alive will only bring disaster. By the time the flame deity appeared, He Sua had already rescued Wang Feng. Don't take me for a fool. You are really a vicious dog that bites first. A death challenge is a matter of life and death, so you deserve to die. Wang Feng actually took advantage of the situation and started a battle for revenge. If he killed Ling Xiao, I'm afraid you wouldn't even let out a fart. Why are you pretending to be a senior now? Yang Danlin did not give the flame deity any face at all. Yang Danlin, are you really going to protect that brat? The flame deity asked coldly. So what if I protect him? If you want to touch him, you'll have to step over this old man's dead body first. Yang Danlin looked coldly at the flame deity, not backing down. Haha, good. I'll give you face. Empyrean Demon Flame laughed heartily. He came quickly and left quickly, vanishing without a trace. Wang Feng was also taken away by He Sua and the others. Although they were extremely unhappy, what could they do? Wait. Ling Xiao actually defeated Wang Feng, who has just advanced to the Transcendent Realm. Then, he is fully deserving of the title of #1 in the Outer Sect. Yes, Wang Feng was not Ling Xiao's opponent when he advanced to the Transcendent Realm. Then, when he was just a half-step Grandmaster, he was definitely not Ling Xiao's opponent. This Ling Xiao is too terrifying. All the Outer Sect disciples were shocked. They looked at Ling Xiao with horror, fear, and a little respect. After all, a new disciple could defeat the #1 master in the Outer Sect in just a month. He was fully deserving of being #1. Jin Ming, who was rank 3rd, was killed by Ling Xiao. Jian Xing, who was rank 2nd, was forced to admit defeat by Ling Xiao in one move. Wang Feng, who was ranked 1st, needed the flame deity's help to save his life. If Ling Xiao was not the #1, who deserved to be called #1? So, Chapter 315. Dai Yuling bitterly smiled and said, "Fortunately, you are fine. Otherwise, I would have become a great sinner of the sect." Although her words were simple, she was grateful to Ling Xiao from the bottom of her heart. Today's battle was initiated for her sake. Lan Yu's beautiful eyes wandered as she looked at Ling Xiao with a complicated gaze. She was once an outstanding genius of the sect. Therefore, she was somewhat lazy in her cultivation. Otherwise, she would have already advanced to the Heaven Realm. However, after seeing Ling Xiao, she realized that her efforts were far from enough. If she continued to slack off, she would be easily surpassed by this brat. Northern Han's princess, Zhao Ci's mouth was wide open in shock. She could not understand why the heavens were so unfair, allowing this cruel fellow's strength to rise so quickly. Northern Han's prince, Zhao, she could only bitterly smile and shake his head. He was very glad that he did not challenge Ling Xiao. Otherwise, he would have been defeated even more miserably. When he had first entered the sect, he had wanted to dominate the outer sect and suppress everyone. In the end, there was Lung Hao. Now there was Ling Xiao. Lung Hao only had outstanding talent and was valued by the golden light, exalted celestial. However, this Ling Xiao's talent was inferior to his, but his cultivation and strength far surpassed his, causing him to feel frustrated. He felt that he could not see through this junior brother of his who entered the Yuehua school at the same time as him. Elder Black, what do you think? Is Ling Xiao worthy of being called number one in the outer court? Elder White proudly looked at Elder Black, who had an unsightly expression, and said, "Humph, being number one in the outer court is not so easy. The top 3 are inferior to him, but there are others in the top 10. There are more than 1,000 outer court disciples. There might not be no one who dares not challenge him." Elder Black coldly snorted, "Hee, what you said is a matter for the future. Ling Xiao defeated Wang Feng and is now number 1 in the outer court. Who dares to not accept it?" Elder White laughed happily. In the past, Elder Black used the flame deity's power to ridicule him in every possible way. Today his anger was completely vented. It was not entirely true that Ling Xiao did not have the title of number 1 in the accident door. After all, the number 1 outer sect disciple would receive better resources and treatment than all the other outer sect disciples. As a result, Ling Xiao obtained a new cave residence that day. The location of this immortal's cave was better, and the spirit chi was more abundant. Moreover, the monthly salary he could receive was already more than all the outer sect disciples. Compared to the outer sect disciples who were ranked below the 30th place, the rewards were 30 times more. Not only that, when Ling Xiao met the Tower Master that night, the other party also gave him the promised reward. "Ling Xiao, I'm very satisfied with your performance in the Desperation Tower, so I can give you a chance. Go to the Inner Sect's Moonlight Tower and choose a rare gold tier martial art. There are no restrictions on the type. It doesn't matter when you choose, but you can't stay in the Inner Sect's Moonlight Tower for more than an hour. A rare gold grade martial art." Ling Xiao couldn't help but reveal a smile. His inner force cultivation method, Snow Lotus Truth, was still a quasi-gold grade martial art. It could not keep up with his current cultivation, so it was imperative that he choose a gold grade inner force cultivation method. Ling Xiao already had a gold grade defensive martial art, Heavenly Dragon Golden Body, and a rare gold grade sword technique, Snow Lotus Sword Technique. Therefore, he was very clear in his heart how big the gap between gold grade martial arts was. Not to mention quasi-gold grade martial arts and gold grade martial arts. Even if it was a gold grade entry-level martial art and a rare gold grade martial art, there was a difference between heaven and earth. In the Yuehua school, outer sect disciples could only obtain gold grade entry-level martial arts, while inner sect disciples were qualified to learn rare gold grade martial arts. Therefore, to an outer sect disciple like him, he knew better than anyone how precious this opportunity was. This is the special entrance token of the Inner Sect's Moonlight Tower. It can only be used once, so treasure it well. After giving Ling Xiao the token, the Desperation Tower Master let Ling Xiao leave. Even though Ling Xiao felt that the aura of the Desperation Tower Master was very familiar, he still did not dare confirm it. Some things could be life-threatening once he confirmed it. If this person was really the person he was familiar with, he would have taken the initiative to tell Luo Yunyang his identity. There was no need to worry about this. After returning to his new cave abode, Ling Xiao was not in a hurry to choose a martial art. He wanted to make sure that he was in peak condition. After all, he only had an hour. If he was not in good condition, it would be very troublesome. Of course, while he was recovering, he did not forget the task that the Yuan Venerate had given him. Refine the fire snake array. In addition to his inner force cultivation method, he was also looking forward to cultivating in the vast cold hall. The flame deity had already targeted him. However, as long as he was in the sect and had Yang Danlin's protection, the flame deity would not dare do anything. Of course, he could still use He Suo and the others to put pressure on Ling Xiao. However, unless the flame deity took action personally, Ling Xiao was not afraid. It was just that he wouldn't be able to easily leave the sect in a short period of time. Otherwise, he would really be in danger, unless a powerhouse left with him, or he had the ability to protect himself from heavenly sovereign demon flame. Cultivation was one aspect. Formations, on the other hand, were another aspect. Of course, alchemy was also possible. If he could refine truly outstanding elixir pills, it would not be impossible to hire a Skyman expert as a bodyguard, even though it would take a lot of time. After feeling that his condition had completely recovered, Ling Xiao left the cave abode and prepared to head to the inner sect's Moonlight Tower. However, before that, he went to visit Dai Yuling. He really wanted to know Dai Yuling's current situation. He wanted to know if Dai Yuling had been bullied while he was resting. The situation was better than he had imagined. His thunderous means made all the outer sect disciples keep quiet out of fear, and Yang Danlin blocked the flame deity's attack, which also made some outer sect elders and deacons not dare to easily offend Ling Xiao. They would rather choose not to help either side, because offending either side might lead to a very miserable result. Only Elder He and Elder Bai's attitude was very clear. Elder He was determined to wear the same pants as the flame deity. Elder Bai, on the other hand, supported Ling Xiao. When passing by the outer sect and medicine hall, many outer sect disciples were very respectful to him. Whether it was sincere or not, they all called him Senior Brother Ling with suspicion. It felt a little strange to suddenly change from a junior brother to an outer sect senior brother, especially when he was addressed as senior brother by someone who was twice his age. He always felt awkward. But this was the reality. If you were stronger than the other party, even if the other party's qualifications and age were older than you, they still had to be respectful to you. Originally, Ling Xiao did not intend to be so ostentatious. His original plan was to enter the inner sect after advancing to the transcendent realm. There was no need to dominate the outer sect at all. But now it was actually a good thing. He was forced to become the outer sect's number one. Chapter 3:16. In the outer sect, including Elder He, no one dared to trouble Ling Xiao or Dai Yuling. After all, he was merciless when it came to killing people. Ling Xiao, you're here. Dai Yuling recovered faster than expected. She had now become the big sister of the medicine hall. Her Sakura tree martial soul was much stronger than her original martial soul, so she was more outstanding in all aspects than before, coupled with Ling Xiao's protection, who dared to provoke her. Now, there were many people who wanted to befriend Dai Yuling. How is it no one came to trouble you during this time, right? Ling Xiao asked with a smile. Trouble? Now that everyone knows that I have a ferocious and protective friend who would dare to cause trouble for me. But your performance in the death challenge that day was so outstanding, especially in the end when you almost defeated Wang Feng and forced Empyrean Demon Flame to descend. Will you be all right? Dai Yuling asked worriedly. Ling Xiao shook his head and said, I kept a low profile before because I didn't have a backer. If I was targeted by Heavenly Venerable Devil Flame, then I would have died without a doubt. But it's different now. With Senior Yang backing me up, Heavenly Venerable Devil Flame won't dare to touch me, at least within the sect. Besides, with my strength and ability, plus my temper, it's impossible to keep a low profile. If I'm pushed too far, I'll even kill an inner sect disciple. Alas, that's true. Unless you're a coward forever, you really can't keep a low profile. After all, you were targeted by He Suo from the beginning. He kept causing trouble for you. You have to fight back. Dai Yuling sighed and said, That's why, Rain Spirit, you don't need to worry about these things. Empyrean Demon Flame has indeed noticed me, and he might even feel threatened by me. But he won't completely lose his cool and deal with me. He is an inner court elder, and he cares about face. Ling Xiao was very confident about this. That's good. Anyway, you must be careful. In the Yuehua school, you're my backer, Dai Yuling said with a smile. Of course. After bidding farewell to Dai Yuling, Ling Xiao took the token given to him by the Desperation Tower's Tower Master and headed towards the inner sect's Moonlight Tower. Without a doubt, this was a place that only inner court disciples were qualified to enter. Moreover, even for inner disciples, there were strict requirements. You couldn't enter just because you wanted to. As for the outer sect disciples, unless one had a special entry token, only then would one be able to enter. However, only 2 or 3 people in the sect had access to the entrance tokens. It just so happened that the Desperation Tower's Tower Master was one of them. Ling Xiao could be considered lucky to be able to obtain his recognition. The inner sect's Moonlight Tower was a very ordinary wooden building. However, there was something extraordinary about it. After 100,000 years, the inner sect's Moon Essence Tower had never been repaired. Even so, this wooden pavilion didn't have any traces of wind or rain. There weren't even insect bites. It looked as if it had just been built yesterday. It was still brand new. Ling Xiao could sense that a powerful array formation should have been set up under this inner sect's Moonlight Tower to be able to achieve such an effect. Forget about wind and rain, even mosquito bites. Even if a Deva Realm powerhouse wanted to barge in, it was also impossible. Just the array formation was already so powerful. Not to mention, the inner sect's Moonlight Tower's guards were actually all transcendent 9th level experts, second only to Deva Realm. With such guards working in tandem with the formation, not to mention blocking an expert of the Celestial Realm, even if they wanted to kill him, it would not be impossible. Halt! This is the sect's important place. Outer sect disciples are not allowed to enter. Otherwise, we'll kill without discussion. Ling Xiao's figure was captured by a guard very quickly. His thunderous voice made one's qi and blood churn. Extremely uncomfortable. The guard's eyes didn't have any contempt. Perhaps to them, Ling Xiao didn't even have the qualifications to make them despise him. Who would have a look of contempt for an ant on the road? Senior apprentice brother guard, this disciple is under the orders of the Desperation Tower's Tower Master to come to the inner sect's Moonlight Tower to receive a set of gold grade rare rank martial art secret manual. This is the token. Although Ling Xiao was unhappy in his heart, he wasn't angry. If one's strength was lacking, it was completely reasonable for others to not care about you. To make these people look at you seriously, one could only be stronger than them in strength. Even if taking out the token made their faces change drastically and become respectful, that was also only because they were wary of the token's owner, not because they feared you. It's actually the Desperation Tower's Tower Master's entrance token. Sorry for the offense. Please enter. Several guards bowed their heads one after another. Of course, their gazes were only staring at the entrance token in Ling Xiao's hand, and not being frightened by Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao swore to himself that one day he would walk into this place with his head held high, and he would make these people truly respect him. This kid is really lucky. He actually got the Desperation Tower's Tower Master's entrance token. Shoo, lower your voice. Don't let the Desperation Tower's Tower Master hear you. That guy is a lunatic, and his strength is ranked in the top 3 in Yuehua School. He's not to be trifled with. I'm just unhappy. An ant actually wants us to bow down to him. What's there to be unhappy about? We're bowing to the token, not him. Who does he think he is? I couldn't tell at all that this kid is actually the number 1 in the outer sect. Although Ling Xiao had already walked into the inner sect's Moonlight Tower, he heard all these people's words. At first, when he didn't show the token, those people didn't take him seriously at all. They even felt that it was extravagant to look down on him. Later on, when he took out the token, these people felt that he was qualified to be looked down on. This was human nature. This was the world. The inner sex Moonlight Tower was indeed much more luxurious than the outer sex Moonlight Tower. The exterior looked simple and unadorned, but the interior was simply eye-catching. All kinds of arrays and arrays were intertwined, completely isolating this small space. After all, this was already considered the inheritance ground of the Yuehua School. Once the inner sex Moonlight Tower was breached, then the Yuehua School would not be far from being destroyed. There were 3 doors on the first floor. Needless to say, these 3 doors were arranged with arrays, so after entering, they would be directly transported to a special space. Each door corresponded to a type of entrance token. A wooden entrance token allowed one to enter a door that contained a rare gold grade martial art. An iron entrance token allowed one to enter a door that contained a high-grade gold grade martial art. A jade entrance token allowed one to enter a door that contained a high-grade gold grade martial art. Inner sect disciples didn't need an entrance token. They were determined which door to enter based on their cultivation. There was a saying that under normal circumstances, a gold grade martial art was more suitable for cultivators below the first level of the transcendent realm to cultivate. Therefore, in the Yuehua School, it was more than enough for outer sect disciples to cultivate a gold grade martial art. A rare gold grade martial art was more suitable for cultivators below the 3rd level of the transcendent realm, so those below the 3rd level of the transcendent realm could only enter this door. Chapter 317. Top gold grade martial arts were more suitable for cultivators below the 9th level of the transcendent realm. Of course, after reaching the heaven realm, it could also be used as a transition. As for cultivators above the heaven realm, they would probably have to come into contact with jade grade martial arts. Since the Yuehua School had a heaven realm expert, it must have jade grade martial arts. Unfortunately, there was no such thing in the inner sex Moonlight Tower. There were only 3 doors here, and the most powerful martial arts were only of the gold level. This meant that the Yuehua sect must have hidden more precious martial arts manuals in other places. Of course, this had nothing to do with Ling Xiao for the time being. He walked to the wooden door and showed the wooden entry token. As the token disappeared from his hand, the door slowly opened. You have half an hour to choose the martial arts you want. Don't waste it. Suddenly, a voice sounded directly in Ling Xiao's mind. Another heaven realm expert. Ling Xiao could not be wrong. This voice was probably the master of the inner sex Moonlight Tower. Thank you for the reminder, Senior. This junior understands. Half an hour? Ling Xiao could not help but secretly smile. For him, choosing a martial art was not difficult at all. Not to mention half an hour, he might not even need a quarter of an hour. Behind the wooden door was a wooden sign floating in midair. On it were the names, characteristics, and requirements of the martial arts. There was no specific content. Therefore, it was impossible for Ling Xiao to duplicate them. Dragons, extinguishment, wind returning sword, shadow steps, true self-divine technique. Although he could not duplicate them, Ling Xiao could still find his own martial arts through soul imprint. What he wanted the most was the evolved version of the Snow Lotus Truth. If it was not available, he could go for the next best thing and choose a martial art with similar attributes. With just a casual glance, the names of thousands of martial arts on the wooden sign merged into Ling Xiao's memory. The Yuehua School was indeed worthy of being one of the 12 sects. These were all rare gold grade martial arts. If they were in the secular world, there would be bloody fights over them. Although Ling Xiao coveted a lot of martial skills, he still held back. He felt that his Snow Lotus Sword art should be able to reach the Transcendent Realm 3rd layer without any problems. The Divine Hell King's Fist was slightly weaker, but when combined with soul power, its overall offensive power was not inferior to a rare gold rank martial art. Therefore, there was really no need to waste time on martial skills. He didn't need a defensive martial art either. His heavenly dragon golden body was a high-tier gold tier martial art. It wouldn't be a problem for him to cultivate it up to Transcendent Stage 6. Therefore, the crux of the matter was the internal energy cultivation method and the substitute for the shadow cultivation secret method. Right now, he was still focusing on his inner force cultivation method. After all, although the effects of the shadow cultivation secret technique would gradually weaken, it could still be used. Cultivating his inner force and heart principle was of utmost importance. Without it, he might not even be able to break through to the transcendent realm, which was a big problem. When choosing martial arts, don't be greedy for power. Choose what suits you best. That voice rang out again. Ling Xiao was unable to determine where he was. The difference in strength was simply too great. Many thanks for Senior's reminder. Ling Xiao felt that the pavilion master of the Moonflower Tower was a good person. If it was any other Heaven Realm master, they might not necessarily guide an outer sect disciple. As for why the pavilion master's voice rang out in his mind, he didn't find it strange. In the sealed world, there were martial arts, divine abilities, martial spirits, and some special talents that should be able to do this. It was just that he hadn't seen it before. After all, he was just an outer sect disciple of the Yuehua school. There were many things that he hadn't seen before. There was really no need to care about these things. After a while, Ling Xiao finished reading all the martial arts names and summaries on the wooden tablets. Moreover, they were integrated into his soul memory. He didn't dare say that he was the only one who could do this, but he was definitely very rare. Although his goal was the evolved version of the Snow Lotus Truth, when he saw the thousands of rare gold-grade martial arts, it was impossible to say that he wasn't moved. Some of these martial arts were very powerful, but unfortunately he could only choose one. This was the limit of an outer sect disciple. If he became an inner sect disciple, he could choose any rare gold-grade martial arts without any restrictions. Dragon Extinguishing Art. This is an inner force cultivation method that also has auxiliary effects. Legend had it that in ancient times a great fire dragon was slain by a martial artist. However, this martial artist was also struck by the flames of the dragon's breath. This martial artist relied on his tenacious willpower to forcefully transform the flames of the dragon's breath into his own true essence, and finally created this martial skill. Requirement: cultivation at the peak of the 9th martial vein stage and inner force potential. Treasure body. Dark shadow steps is the favorite movement technique of assassin-type martial artists. This is a movement technique created by an extraordinary martial artist who once assassinated a celestial realm expert in ancient times. It requires cultivation of the late 9th level of the martial vein, inner strength potential of a fine treasure body, and body potential of a divine treasure body. Returning wind sword. When this sword technique is used, it can attract the wind of nature. Every sword has the power of the wind. When used, it will become faster and faster, making the enemy unable to block. Legend has it that this sword technique was created by an ancient martial artist who comprehended and created it in a typhoon. To be honest, martial arts that could reach the rare gold grade were generally not bad. Ling Xiao could be considered to have suffered from a difficult choice. He originally thought that he would be able to make a choice in 15 minutes. But in reality, after looking at all the martial arts, he had been standing there with his eyes closed, thinking about what martial arts he should choose. Let's stick to the original plan. In the end, Ling Xiao reluctantly gave up on a few martial arts that he really wanted to cultivate. In the end, he set his goal on the inner force cultivation method. Moreover, it was also the evolved version of the Snow Lotus solution that he had originally planned. 12 Golden Lotus arts. This cultivation technique allows one to condense a golden lotus within their body. When one cultivates up to 12 petals, it will be considered complete. Every petal of the flower could draw upon a type of natural energy. If it reached perfection, its power would be unimaginable. If combined with the Snow Lotus sword art, its power would be even more terrifying. Requirements: Cultivation peak 9th level martial vein, internal energy potential. Divine grade treasure body, body potential. Divine grade treasure body, soul potential. Divine grade treasure body. On top of that, he had to master the snow lotus insight to the transcendent state. Note, the person with the highest level of attainment in this cultivation method is the person who created it. However, even this person could only cultivate up to the 9-petal lotus. The last 3 levels only exist in theory. Cultivating them is extremely dangerous. If you draw upon the power of nature, you might end up being annihilated. The note was handwritten. It should be a warning left by a senior from Yuehua School. However, even without such a warning, the requirements of this set of martial arts were crazy enough. Chapter 318. The requirements for the 12 Golden Lotus Arts were so high that even geniuses like Ming Tian, Lung Hao, and Lan Yu were unable to cultivate it. Ling Xiao did not hesitate and finally chose the 12 Golden Lotus Arts. The danger of many martial arts varied from person to person. It was obvious that the person who added the note had not even cultivated the 9-petal lotus, so his understanding of the 12 Golden Lotus Arts was not complete. If he had listened to this person, he might have missed out on a classic martial art. According to Ling Xiao's experience, he felt that the harder it was to cultivate, the higher the requirements, and the more dangerous the martial art was, the greater the benefits it would bring. He possessed the mountain river martial spirit, so even if there was something wrong with the martial art, he would be able to find out and correct it. The martial artist who created it did not cultivate it to perfection, but it did not mean that he could not do it. This was the huge advantage of the mountain river martial spirit. What was a genius? It was to be able to do things that others could not. Most of the rare gold grade martial arts were similar. If he chose to be the same as others, then how could he be stronger than others? His path of martial arts had always been unconventional. Starting from the Ling family, he had chosen martial arts that others were not willing to choose or were unable to cultivate. He still intended to do so. The unknown could bring bad luck, but it could also bring a huge surprise. He was willing to take a gamble, not to mention that he could afford it. After all, he possessed the mountain river martial spirit. If he did not use this advantage, wouldn't it be too wasteful? 12 Golden Lotus Arts. The mysterious voice sounded again. Senior, what advice do you have? Ling Xiao asked respectfully. Since you've asked, this house lord is not afraid to tell you that this 12 Golden Lotus Arts can only be considered a trash martial art. Although it can be said that if it is cultivated to perfection, its might may be more terrifying than any other martial art of the same level. But even the martial artist who created it was unable to do so. If it is only 9 lotuses, then compared to other rare martial arts, it is only dangerous. Therefore, this house lord advises you to give up on it. The house master of the Moon Essence Tower was extremely benevolent. In fact, he did not need to say such words. He probably did not want to see a genius fall like this. Ling Xiao cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, senior. However, this disciple has made up his mind. I will choose this martial art." Arrogant and ignorant, the voice suddenly became stern. If it was not for Yang Danlin and the house master's face, this house master would not be willing to talk nonsense with a stubborn brat like you. If you don't listen to your elders, you will suffer. Don't you understand? Ling Xiao still showed the proper etiquette. After all, she was doing this for his own good. This disciple has always been like this. That person was silent for a while before he said, Fine. I'll give you one last piece of advice. If you don't want to listen, just listen to me. Senior, please. You should know that this 12 Golden Lotus Arts was originally used by other sects to trap our Yuehua school. In the past, when our Yuehua school was at its peak, there were hundreds and thousands of geniuses who had all 3 potential treasured bodies. However, because of this thing, they all died. The mysterious voice said in a miserable tone, when they cultivated the 12 Golden Lotus Arts, there were only 3 endings in the end. First, their martial arts would be crippled. Their martial veins would be destroyed, and they would become a cripple. Second, the Golden Lotus would shatter and they would explode. Not even a complete corpse would be left. Third, they would be killed by the force of nature summoned by the Golden Lotus and turned into ashes. Now you understand. It is not a good thing at all. It is purely a martial art that harms people. But Senior, if that is the case, why is this thing still here? Shouldn't it be destroyed? Ling Xiao asked doubtfully. It can't be destroyed. That voice sighed and said, that secret manual contains the Creator's spiritual strength. If you choose to destroy it, that spiritual strength will protect the secret manual. If you throw it away or bury it, it will come back on its own. The creator of this martial art is an ancient martial artist. His spiritual strength is far too powerful. We have no way to do anything about it. Only if someone is willing to sincerely accept it can we send it away. Then why don't you give it to me? Ling Xiao suddenly said. You can choose and learn martial arts in the Yuehua Tower. However, you can only take away the copies that will be destroyed in a short time. The original copy will not be lent out. Ling Xiao's request sounded a bit excessive. However, it was not impossible for this book. After all, it sounded like the people of the Yuehua school did not like this secret book. Give it to you. It's not impossible, but I think that old man Yang Danlin will fight me to the death. The mysterious voice shook its head and said, although I can defeat him, it will be troublesome if that old man doesn't refine medicine for me. No, you can learn it, but you can't take it away. Senior, if I learn it, it's no different from taking it away, right? Ling Xiao said with a smile. This seems to be the case. The voice was silent for a long time before it finally said, Fine. Take it away. But remember, if that old man Yang Danlin asks, don't say that I asked you to take it away. Anyway, this is your own choice. Senior, don't worry. But why do you insist on this secret book? The voice suddenly asked. It's a secret. Ling Xiao did not make up a lie. He felt that he could not fool the other party. Rather than that, he might as well not say anything. In fact, the reason why he wanted the original copy was mainly to study the use of soul power. He felt that since the potential of the soul was as important as the potential of the body and the potential of internal power, it could definitely not be as simple as just increasing one's attack. Perhaps it could be used more extensively. For example, the way the creator of the 12 Golden Lotus arts used it sounded very magical. It could actually prevent the secret book from being destroyed, and it could even make the secret book return automatically. The key was that the martial artist who used this soul power had died many years ago. If he did not properly grasp such a magical thing, he might not have another chance if he missed it. Catch it! Whoosh! A book flew out from the void and hit Ling Xiao. With this kind of power, if one's strength was not at the level of the top 3 in the outer sect, it would be impossible to catch it. It seemed that the master of the inner sect Moonlight Tower was also an old urchin. He actually used this kind of thing to test Ling Xiao. Pa! Ling Xiao caught the book steadily and poured his soul power into it. At that moment, a strange scene appeared. Ling Xiao found himself standing in a strange paradise. In the darkness, a figure gradually lit up. Then the golden lotus in his body rotated, and strange rays of light shot out one after another. Chapter 319. Violent winds wreaked havoc, triggering tsunamis and destroying cities. That terrifying power was terrifying. Thunder rumbled, and every time it sounded, it would cause mountains to explode. Heavy rain poured down, filling the great rivers and submerging the mountains and cities. Lightning struck, and towering mountain ridges were destroyed in an instant. Snowflakes fluttered, and the snowflakes that filled the sky froze the entire world. Hailstones wreaked havoc, and the lives of many living creatures were easily taken away. Fog was endless, and the dangers hidden within were completely unpredictable. The sun shone for thousands of miles, and the terrifying heat caused countless living creatures to dry up and die. Darkness descended, and the world lost its light. Volcanoes erupted, and the hot magma easily melted steel. Living creatures were unable to escape. Earthquakes struck, and the earth cracked and became riddled with scars. Meteors from outer space, and that was the sign of doomsday. Wind, rain, thunder, lightning, snow, hailstones, fog, sun, darkness, volcano, earthquake, meteor. There were exactly 12 kinds of celestial phenomena, representing 12 lotuses. Every single one of them contained a terrifying amount of power. If they were added to the snow lotus sword art, it would be absolutely terrifying. Of course, such a terrifying scene could only be created by an ancient martial artist. With Ling Xiao's strength, it was impossible for him to achieve such a result. Even so, once the 12 golden lotus arts condensed 12 golden lotuses, it would greatly increase his strength. There was no need to doubt this point. After the figure finished condensing the 12 golden lotuses, the contents of the 12 golden lotus arts began to merge with Ling Xiao's soul. Ling Xiao could feel that when the figure in the manual displayed the first 9 kinds of celestial phenomena, it was very solid and close to perfection. However, when it came to the last volcano, earthquake, and meteor, there were clearly a lot of flaws. It was completely a theoretical attempt and had not been corrected through actual combat. This was not surprising, as even the creator of the 12 golden lotus arts did not cultivate the last 3 lotuses. This guy was truly a madman to actually dare to pass down this kind of martial art. Was he not afraid of harming many talented martial artists? After completely merging the contents of the 12 golden lotus arts into his soul, Ling Xiao temporarily put the book away. He wasn't in a hurry to study soul force. Right now, he needed to focus on his cultivation. He believed that the faster his cultivation increased, the easier it would be to study soul force. Moreover, according to Ling Xiao's judgment, the use of soul force was most likely related to the art of refining arrays. His art of refining arrays had only just begun, so it wouldn't be good for him to rush into studying soul force. It might even be extremely dangerous. In any case, he had already obtained the original copy of the 12 golden lotus arts. Sooner or later, he would be able to figure out the relationship between refining arrays and soul force. Furthermore, perhaps the arrays and arrays within the Moonlight Pavilion were also related to soul force. Now that he couldn't see the relationship, perhaps in the future, when others could only choose one book, he could directly copy everything inside. He was very curious. The more difficult something was, the more interested Ling Xiao would be, and the more he would work tirelessly. This was his personality. Ling Xiao, remember this. Even though 12 golden lotus arts isn't a forbidden martial art from Yuehua school, if you teach it to others without permission, you'll still be breaking the rules, and you'll still be punished. This disciple understands. Ling Xiao replied. Although he was worried, he didn't really care. The 12 golden lotus arts had such high requirements. How could an ordinary person learn it? Moreover, once he completely mastered the 12 golden lotus arts and formed 12 lotuses, his attainments would be even higher than the creator's. This martial art could be considered a patent for him. The sect didn't have the qualifications to control who he taught it to. No wonder that old bastard Yang Danlin values this kid so much. This kid's talent is outstanding, but he's not arrogant. He's also very respectful to his seniors. Such a kid is really rare. Ling Xiao didn't know that he had received the praise of the Moonlight Pavilion's master for acting according to his own nature. Ha ha ha. Old bastard, are you envious? What a pity. This kid is already old Hall Master Yang's disciple. You don't have a chance. The person with the Moonlight Pavilion's master was none other than the Desperation Pavilion's master, who was wearing a ghost mask. I'm envious, but this kid is still a bit too confident. I'm worried that the 12 golden lotus arts he chose will not bring him any benefits. Instead, it might harm him and make it difficult for him to progress. The warning he had given Ling Xiao before wasn't just to scare him. It had really happened. The older generation of Yuehua school disciples all knew that the 12 Golden Lotus Arts had once been a nightmare for the Yuehua school. Don't worry. Once bitten, twice shy. Old Hall Master Yang won't let anything happen to him. The Desperation Pavilion's master also didn't believe that Ling Xiao could master the 12 Golden Lotus Arts. In his opinion, Ling Xiao would definitely suffer a painful lesson this time. However, as long as he could keep his life, there would still be plenty of opportunities in the future. Ling Xiao didn't know what had happened in the Moonlight Pavilion after he left. He was now fully focused on the 12 Golden Lotus Arts. Not only could this internal cultivation technique help increase his true yuan and increase his cultivation, but it also had a special effect on the Snow Lotus Sword Arts. He didn't know how much it could increase his true yuan, but he really wanted to find out soon. Martial arts manuals could actually be divided into two categories. One belonged to the immemorial martial arts, which were created by martial artists in the immemorial era. At that time, martial arts were used in conjunction with martial spirits. The 12 Golden Lotus Arts was obviously the same. When combined with 12 celestial martial spirits, the effect would be multiplied several times. The other category belonged to the modern martial arts, which were mainly created by the new generation of martial artists. It didn't include the use of martial spirits. Generally speaking, the modern martial arts were more suitable for the new generation of martial artists. The requirements were lower, cultivation was simpler, and promotion was faster. However, the upper limit was lower. The immemorial martial arts were more difficult to cultivate, and promotion was very slow. Moreover, one needed a suitable martial spirit to display the greatest power. However, the terrifying thing about immemorial martial arts was that once one had a suitable martial spirit, the upper limit would be very high. It would far surpass the power of modern martial arts of the same level. After returning to the cave, Ling Xiao sat cross-legged and closed his eyes. Then, a figure appeared in his mind, repeatedly practicing the cultivation method of the 12 Golden Lotus Arts. He practiced every move of the Snow Lotus Sword art over and over again, triggering 12 celestial phenomena, displaying a terrifying destructive power as if a god had descended. A rare gold level martial art? Ling Xiao secretly shook his head. This 12 Golden Lotus Arts was definitely not a rare gold level martial art. He even felt that the level of this martial art was higher than Heavenly Dragon Golden Body. Chapter 320. The reason why the Yuehua school placed the 12 Golden Lotus Arts behind the wooden door was probably because they were afraid that more talented inner disciples would accidentally practice it. After all, generally speaking, disciples who had just entered the inner sect would not choose this kind of martial art that was difficult to cultivate. Moreover, it had extremely high requirements and was extremely dangerous. Breaking through to the transcendent realm was not easy. If one failed, all their previous efforts would be wasted. The price was a bit too high. After studying it carefully, Ling Xiao discovered that the 12 Golden Lotus Arts had two characteristics. The first one was similar to most inner force cultivation arts. Every additional lotus petal would increase one's realm by one level. At the same time, it would increase the total quantity and quality of true qi as well as cultivation. There were a total of 12 levels, which was 3 levels more than most inner force cultivation arts. The second one was a unique attribute. Every additional lotus petal would allow one to borrow the power of a celestial phenomenon. Similarly, there were 12 celestial phenomena. There is no difference in the power of a celestial phenomenon. As the number of petals increased, the power would continue to increase. The first level allowed one to comprehend the power of a celestial phenomenon and add it to the Snow Lotus Sword Arts. The second level of the celestial phenomenon was gradually formed. When used, it would be more obvious and its power would also increase. The third level of the celestial phenomenon was complete. Its power would increase greatly, and because it could borrow the power of 3 celestial phenomena, it could be used together. Basically, the Snow Lotus Sword arts would be invincible among martial arts of the same level. The 4th level to the 6th level of the celestial phenomenon was gradually formed. Its power would continue to increase, and the celestial phenomenon would become more obvious. When used together, it would produce special effects. For example, wind could cut, thunder could stun, rain could restore true chi, and lightning could paralyze the opponent. The 7th level to the 8th level of the celestial phenomenon was gradually formed. The destructive power of the celestial phenomenon was even more terrifying, and the power of the Snow Lotus Sword arts was even more terrifying. The 9th level of the celestial phenomenon was complete. 9 celestial phenomena would dance wildly. When used together, one could trigger natural celestial phenomena. The success rate depended on one's martial spirit and the weather conditions. Once successful, one could completely disregard all martial artists below the heaven realm. Even those who had just entered the heaven realm would have to retreat. The 10th level to the 12th level did not have a real battle, so its effects were unknown. It was estimated that one could completely trigger the power of a celestial phenomenon and reach the level of killing a heaven realm master. Let's not talk about the last 3 levels for now. Because there was no actual combat test, his speculations might not be reliable. However, just the perfection of the 9th level was already very terrifying. Once he encountered the right weather and triggered the power of the celestial phenomenon, Ling Xiao would be almost invincible under the celestial realm. It was even possible for him to kill his opponent in an instant. Even heaven-tier experts would have to avoid such a situation. An immemorial martial art was indeed an immemorial martial art. Moreover, this 12 Golden Lotus arts was created by a crazy person. This kind of terrifying power was definitely not a gold grade, rare grade martial art. Perhaps even a gold grade, high grade martial art would not be able to block it. Could it be a gold grade martial art? Who knew? In any case, among the gold grade martial arts, the 12 Golden Lotus arts was definitely the most terrifying, but also the most dangerous. This could be seen from the fact that hundreds of top geniuses in the Yuehua school had been killed or injured because of this technique. Only a madman would dare to create such a martial art. In such a dangerous situation, only a madman would dare to cultivate such a martial art. Ling Xiao had always felt that he had no foundation and no clan, so he had to go to the extreme. Otherwise, how could he compare to those geniuses from prestigious clans? Fortunately, he had the mountain and river martial spirit, alchemy skills, and formation skills. Relying on these, he could minimize the risk of cultivating the 12 Golden Lotus arts. After comprehending it, the next step was cultivation. The first level was to condense the first golden lotus petal and comprehend the power of the celestial phenomenon, wind. Ling Xiao did not have a wind-type martial spirit, but he had the mountain and river martial spirit. The mountain and river martial spirit was all-encompassing. It was a world by itself, and it encompassed almost all celestial phenomena. Therefore, to Ling Xiao, comprehending celestial phenomena was not a problem at all. When cultivating, Ling Xiao simply activated the mountain and river martial spirit. He did not dare to use it during battle for fear of being seen by others. However, when cultivating, he was not afraid because he did not need to use it. Every cave was protected by a formation. In addition to the interference of the airflow he created, no one would be able to realize that he was using the mountain and river martial spirit. After all, what he was using was only one of the powers of the mountain and river martial spirit, wind. At this moment, within the mountain and river martial spirit, a violent wind was raging. The sound of the wind came from the forest, and the sea was constantly being blown by the wind. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ling Xiao began to cultivate. With the help of the martial spirit, in addition to his outstanding perception and the analytical ability of the mountain and river martial spirit, Ling Xiao had successfully cultivated the first level of the 12 Golden Lotus Arts in a mere 2 hours. In the position of his dantian, there was an additional golden lotus petal flickering with light. It seems that my judgment was correct. I have the mountain and river martial spirit. Choosing this 12 Golden Lotus Arts is simply a perfect match. Although Ling Xiao expected that cultivating it would not be too difficult, after all, he had already cultivated a high-grade, gold-grade martial art and had accumulated a lot of experience in cultivating gold-grade martial arts. But even so, he did not expect it to be so easy. According to the secret manual, even the person who created this set of martial arts would need at least 7 days to cultivate the first level. As for others, it would take at least a few months, at most a few years, or even decades. Ling Xiao's advantage was his terrifying perception, as well as the mountain and river martial spirit's power of the heavenly phenomenon. This had caused his cultivation speed to be extremely fast. Perhaps even the person who created this set of martial arts would never have thought of it. The cultivation of the second level was relatively more difficult. This was also in line with the rules of ordinary cultivation techniques. The higher one went, the more difficult it would be to cultivate. However, this kind of difficulty was also relative. The second level required the help of the heavenly phenomenon power of thunder. For Ling Xiao, this was actually even less difficult. After the mountain and river martial spirit was activated, the weather in the mountain and river world changed from a violent wind to a thunderstorm. At the same time, the shadow of a thunder bear appeared behind him. With the help of these two factors, the condensation of the second lotus only took 6 hours. This was an advantage, a huge advantage. At the same time as the condensation of the second lotus petal, Ling Xiao's cultivation also continued to increase. He had already advanced from 20% half-step master to 50% half-step master. This speed was as fast as flying. Indeed, a good internal strength cultivation method could greatly increase one's cultivation. His judgment was not wrong about this. The cultivation of the third level was even more difficult. Ling Xiao gave it a try. Because the foundation of the first 2 levels was not stable, it was very difficult to cultivate successfully. Moreover, there were too many hidden dangers in the cultivation process. He thought for a while and temporarily stopped cultivating the 12 Golden Lotus Arts. He separated an avatar to consolidate the results of the first 2 levels. Chapter 321. The 12 Golden Lotus Arts could be used in conjunction with the Snow Lotus Sword Art. Therefore, the comprehension of the last form of the Snow Lotus Sword Art was very important. Meanwhile, his main body began refining the Fire Serpent Array. After so many days, he hadn't stopped studying the array refinement technique. After all, he had to fulfill the requirements of a Yuan Venerate in order to head to the vast cold hall to cultivate. His master was very mysterious and gentle at times, but he never compromised on matters of principle. He was very stubborn and strict. It would be impossible to head to the vast cold hall in advance if he couldn't complete the task assigned to him. Success! After a quarter of an hour, Ling Xiao couldn't help but smile excitedly as he looked at the light red array refinement stone in his hand. The array refinement stone was originally transparent, colorless, and odorless. It would only change when it was smelted into an array or formation. The Fire Serpent Array refinement stone was red, and there were inscriptions of the Fire Serpent Array and a small fire serpent on it. It's time to report back to Master. Ling Xiao glanced at the 2 clones in the cave abode and recalled them helplessly. Although the shadow cultivation secret technique could allow clones to cultivate, the problem was that they couldn't be more than 10 meters away from him. This was also why he was anxious to find a higher-level cultivation secret technique that could replace the shadow cultivation secret technique. If he could be further away, his clones would be able to continue cultivating even when he was doing other things. That way, he wouldn't have to waste time. However, he definitely couldn't do that now. However, This kind of thing couldn't be rushed or forced. Just like the 12 golden lotus arts, he had obtained it through an unexpected life-or-death challenge. He believed that as his cultivation base continued to improve and his strength continued to increase, there would definitely be more opportunities. Right now, the most important thing was to raise his cultivation base to the transcendent grade as soon as possible. Then he would be able to enter the inner sex moonflower building again and find a martial technique that could replace the shadow cultivation secret technique. When he hurried over to Yang Danlin's cave abode, Yang Danlin was researching a new elixir pill while the Yuan Venerate was sleeping. "Oh, you're here, disciple. Master thought you had forgotten about our agreement." The Yuan Venerate opened his eyes when he saw Ling Xiao. However, it was only a slit. Perhaps opening his eyes too wide would waste too much energy. How would I dare to forget Master's instructions? Furthermore, I've always wanted to go to the Guanghan Palace to cultivate. All right, take out your fire snake refining formation stone and let me take a look. Ling Xiao obediently took out 2 fire snake array refining stones. One was refined by a Yuan Venerate, while the other was refined by him. The Yuan Venerate could not be bothered to ask any more questions. He already knew that his disciple had outstanding perception, memory, and comprehension, so there was no point in asking about theories. The most important thing was the quality of the refined fire snake array refining stone. When he carefully looked at Ling Xiao's refining formation stone, he couldn't help but frown. Have you really never been to the celestial court continent? Or have you never learned how to refine arrays? No. Ling Xiao answered honestly. I've really lost to you, old friend. This time, we've really picked up a peerless treasure. This is the first time this brat has refined a fire snake refining formation stone, and he actually refined it with a better effect than me, his master. I really want to find a piece of tofu and kill myself. The Yuan Venerate turned around and told Yang Danlin. Yuan Venerate, old friend, don't complain. It was the same when I taught him alchemy. Do you know why I chose to let little Lon teach him? It was because I didn't want to be discouraged. This kid is simply a monster among monsters. Yang Danlin also smiled bitterly. When it came to alchemy, Yang Danlin was very famous among the 12 sections. When it came to refining arrays, if a Yuan Venerate in the Sky Dragon continent said that he was second, no one would dare to say that they were first. However, in front of a little monster like Ling Xiao, they suddenly felt like fools. They simply couldn't understand. Forget it. Since you can already refine a fire snake refining formation stone on your own, it means that your foundation is already very solid. However, refining arrays is the same as alchemy. Even if you get started relatively quickly, the deeper you learn, the more mysterious and profound you will discover. The Yuan Venerate's expression became serious again. Right now, you are just following the path of others. It can be said that you are standing on the shoulders of giants. When you are able to refine your own pills and arrays, you will be considered a true master. Your disciple will follow master's teachings. Ling Xiao cupped his hands in respect. Good. You're neither arrogant nor impatient. This is commendable. Next, old friend, you will arrange some sect missions for this kid. Try your best to let him come into contact with the various array formations and arrays of the Yuehua school. After saying that, the Yuan Venerate turned to Ling Xiao and said, learning about arrays and arrays is just the beginning. Master wants you to refine all these arrays and arrays into array refining stones. When you do this, you can graduate. If there is anything you don't understand, you can ask Master at any time. All of them. Ling Xiao had been at the Yuehua school for more than a month, so he knew about the situation in the Yuehua school. Almost all the cave residences and pavilions were protected by array formations, while the disciple tokens, elder tokens, and other small objects had array formations on them. Who knew how long it would take to refine all of them into array refining stones? That's right, all of them. However, you don't have to worry. You just have to finish them before you graduate. from the Yuehua school. Next, Master will get your senior brother Yang to contact Wang Han Tianzuan of the Moon Hall. As long as you are willing, you can head over to the Moon Hall to cultivate. Thank you, Master. Ling Xiao thanked him hurriedly. Yang Danlin called Lan Yuer over and asked her to bring Ling Xiao into contact with the array formations and arrays of the Yuehua school. There wasn't much difference between array formations and arrays. The difference was that array formations were relatively larger and were set up independently. On the other hand, arrays were generally smaller and were set up on small objects. They couldn't be set up independently. The principles behind both were the same. It was just that one developed in a larger direction, while the other developed in a smaller direction. Regardless of whether it was an array formation or an array formation, their power would weaken as time passed. Problems might even arise due to certain reasons. For example, the defensive array formation on the Outer Sex Challenge platform might break through the limits of the array formation's defense and cause problems if a relatively strong disciple challenged it. When that happened, someone would have to maintain and repair it. Generally speaking, the matter of maintaining array formations and arrays was handled by the Array Formation Hall. However, Lan Yuer had a very good relationship with the Hall Master of the Array Formation Hall. They were truly good sisters. Therefore, there wouldn't be any problems if she brought Ling Xiao along. Chapter 322. After a few days, Ling Xiao already knew most of the outer array formations of the Yuehua school like the back of his hand. The reason it was called the outer array formations was because there were some more confidential areas that he wasn't qualified to come into contact with. After all, he was still just an outer sect disciple. However, this performance still pleased the Yuan Venerate and Yang Danlin. Thus, Ling Xiao was also promised that Yang Danlin would personally lead him to the vast cold hall for training. The vast cold hall master was the same as the Desperation Tower master. It seemed like she wasn't willing to reveal her true appearance to outsiders. She also wore a mask. However, this mask was much better looking than the Desperation Tower master's. It was in the shape of a butterfly and was very beautiful. That's strange. I sensed a familiar aura from the Desperation Tower master last time. This time, it's the same for the owner of the vast cold hall. Why do the two of them have the same aura? Ling Xiao had originally thought that he had already confirmed the identity of the Desperation Tower Master. However, he was now confused again. Wang Han Tianzuan, I have already given you the elixir pills that I promised you. Can you let my disciple enter the vast cold hall to cultivate now? Yang Danlin asked with a smile. Old Hall Master Yang, I won't go back on my word. However, the doors of the vast cold hall can only be opened once a year. This is the sect's rule. Wang Han Tianzuan said faintly, this is my vast cold token. If this child can enter the vast cold hall, he can stay as long as he wants. I won't stop him. As she spoke, she tossed a jade token in her hand to Ling Xiao. The jade token was strangely cold when it entered his hand. Ling Xiao felt as if his right hand was about to be frozen. Mountain River Ruler, transform! It was obvious that the primordial essence of the Guanghan Heavenly Lord was wrapped in the jade pendant. It was a type of primordial essence that was shockingly cold. Its quality was much stronger than Ling Xiao's Sky Dragon primordial essence, Thunderbolt primordial essence, Fierce Beast primordial essence, and Golden Lotus primordial essence. How could Ling Xiao bear to waste such a good thing? In an instant, the Sky Dragon True Essence in one of his martial veins was completely transformed into this incomparably cold Moon True Essence. Of course, the name was given by him. He did not know what kind of martial arts this True Essence was. After all, the opponent was too strong. Even if he used the Mountain River Martial Spirit's analysis ability, he could not see through it. At this point, there were 5 types of vital essences in his body. The Fierce Beast vital essences occupied 1 martial vein, and there was not much left. They were all consumed when refining formations and pills. The Thunderbolt True Essence occupied a martial vein, and less than half of it remained. The Moon True Essence occupied 3 martial veins and was very abundant. The total amount of True Essence might be insignificant to Wang Han Tianzuan, but to Ling Xiao it was the true essence of 3 martial veins. As for the remaining 4 martial veins, 2 of them were Golden Lotus True Essence and were mainly used for attacking. 2 of them were Heavenly Dragon Vital Essence and were mainly used for defense. Among the 5 types of Vital Essences, the Moon True Essence was the strongest, but he did not dare to use it unless it was a last resort. After all, this was the vital essence of a Heaven Realm expert. Once used, although the lethality was terrifying, it would definitely kill 1,000 enemies and hurt 800 of his own. The second was the Golden Lotus True Essence and the Sky Dragon True Essence. The 2 were currently equal in power, but one was good at attacking and the other was good at defending. They were also Ling Xiao's own vital essences and could be used repeatedly. The weakest were the Thunderbolt True Essence and the Fierce Beast Vital Essences. Ling Xiao saved the Thunderbolt True Essence for when he comprehended the lightning celestial phenomenon. The Fierce Beast Vital Essence could produce black flames, so it was naturally used for refining pills and formations. Wang Han Tianzuan saw Ling Xiao holding her moon token without the slightest discomfort and could not help but be secretly surprised. In fact, she was very curious why Yang Danlin and the Tower Master of Desperation Tower valued this outer sect disciple so much, so she wrapped her vital essence around the moon token in an attempt to test it. Logically speaking, even a transcendent realm cultivator would freeze their right hand after receiving the moon token. But this kid did not have any reaction at all. What a freak. What's wrong, Senior? Is there something wrong? Ling Xiao asked curiously. No, this king was just thinking, if you can't enter from the main entrance, how are you going to enter the Moon Hall? Wang Han Tianzuan asked. Senior, if I don't enter from the main entrance, will I violate the sect rules? Ling Xiao did not want to give others a chance to frame him. Others will definitely violate the sect rules. If it's a light punishment, they will never be allowed to enter the Moon Hall again. If it's a heavy punishment, they will directly cripple their cultivation and expel them from the sect. Wang Han Tianzuan replied, But you are different. You have the moon token. As long as you enter, it is this king's order. No one can say anything. You can even be regarded as this king's representative. Haha, then it's simple, Ling Xiao said with a smile. Simple? Wang Han Tianzuan was a little surprised. Reporting to Senior, in fact, this disciple has already checked the Moon Hall's Grand Array. Although this Grand Array has been repaired, there are still flaws. At present, there are 3 relatively hidden flaws. As long as one is a transcendent realm cultivator, they can easily enter and exit without being discovered by Senior. How is that possible? Ling Xiao's words shocked Wang Han Tianzuan. Although she was not a genius in spirit arrays, she was still very familiar with this Grand Array. In addition, the people from the Array Hall would come to maintain the Grand Array once a month. How could there be such a big flaw? She thought that Ling Xiao was exaggerating, so her aura became even colder, because she did not like liars. Wang Han Tianzuan, don't underestimate Ling Xiao. His ability is no worse than those people from the Array Hall. Yang Danlin smiled. Old Hall Master Yang also thinks that there is a problem with my Grand Array? Wang Han Tianzuan frowned and asked, How about we make a bet? Yang Danlin smiled. What kind of bet? Wang Han Tianzuan asked. It's very simple. If this boy can enter the Moon Hall, can you lend him your Moon Hall token for a long time until he no longer needs it? Yang Danlin replied, If this old master loses in the future, no matter what pill you want to refine, as long as you have the materials, this old master will refine it for you. How about it? Deal. Wang Han Tianzuan's eyes flashed with excitement. Even if she was a heavenly venerable and a heaven realm master, it was very difficult to find young Danlin to refine pills, especially those with high risks. This bet was absolutely beneficial to her. Ling Xiao, did you hear that? Wang Han Tianzuan has given you an excellent opportunity. Don't miss it. Yang Danlin smiled and said to Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao also smiled. It was normal that Wang Han Tianzuan did not believe him. After all, he was just an outer disciple. However, this was really not a problem for him. The 3 flaws in the Moon Hall's grand array could be freely entered and exited. Of course, the premise was that you could discover these 3 flaws. This required a deep understanding of array formations and extremely high eyesight. Even Wang Han Tianzuan could not do it. Chapter 3:23. Other than Ling Xiao, no one else could see through the flaws of the hidden array. Of course, there must be someone else in the Yuehua school who could do it. However, for some reason, these 3 flaws had not been fixed. Wang Han Tianzuan did not believe Ling Xiao, so Ling Xiao wanted to show her. Therefore, under Wang Han Tianzuan's stunned gaze, Ling Xiao walked into the Guanghan Palace and then walked out again. God! Wang Han Tianzuan thought she had seen wrongly and even bit her lips. After confirming that it was not an illusion, she felt a little disappointed and helpless. Now I finally understand why Old Hall Master Yang, the Tower Master of the Desperation Tower, Lan Yu, and even the Tower Master of the Moonlight Tower in the Inner Court treat this kid with special respect. Old Hall Master Yang, can you give this kid to me as a disciple? That won't do. Yang Danlin smiled proudly. Although Ling Xiao was not his disciple, he was still his junior brother. He was also someone that he had taught before. This honor definitely existed. I'm so jealous. Wang Han Tianzuan had never been so crazy before. If I had known, I would have waited in the outer sect when the recruitment was expanded. I heard that Golden Light Tianzuan had chosen a peerless genius. But I think that little guy really can't compare with this little guy. Senior, can this disciple go in? Go in. From today onwards, the Guanghan Palace will be completely open to you. You can come here at any time. However, since you are so powerful, if you have time, you still have to repair this array for me. Wang Han Tianzuan smiled. This disciple understands. After saying that, Ling Xiao couldn't wait to enter the Guanghan Palace. Oh, it's so cold, but after a long time it feels so comfortable. The moment Ling Xiao entered the Guanghan Palace, a gust of cold air hit him in the face. At first, it made him feel very uncomfortable, but after the body adapted to the cold, he felt particularly comfortable. He didn't even need to deliberately cultivate. As long as he stood there and breathed, there would be abundant spiritual energy entering his body and transmitting it through his meridians to his limbs and bones. Ling Xiao found a place with the most abundant spiritual energy and sat down cross-legged. It could also be said that this place was one of the Guanghan Palace's Qi Eyes. The Qi Eyes constantly ejected cold air rich in spiritual energy, which could accelerate the tempering of the body and the impurities in the body. Buzz, buzz, unconsciously, the mountain and river martial spirit began to circulate on its own, and the fusion rate with Ling Xiao's soul also began to increase rapidly. This was something Ling Xiao did not expect. The cold air here actually had such a special effect. In the past, the fusion rate was less than 30%. Now, in just a moment, it had increased to 50%, and it was still increasing. Ling Xiao had always been looking forward to what would happen when the mountain and river martial spirit and his soul fusion reached 100%. He originally thought that this day would be very far away, but now it seemed that it wouldn't take that long. He took a deep breath, took out a refining array stone and crushed it. A strange array diagram suddenly appeared around him. Concealment array. This was only a small array. It was a very ordinary array to hide one's body and aura. Ling Xiao was mainly worried that he would accidentally release the aura of the mountain and river martial spirit during his cultivation and it would be discovered by others. so he used this concealment array to protect himself. After that, he split into two doppelgangers. One of them comprehended the last move of the divine Prison King Fist. The other continued to comprehend the last move of the Snow Lotus sword art. His main body was completely immersed in the cultivation of his body. The Heavenly Dragon Golden Body and 12 Golden Lotus arts were operating at the same time. From the outside, there was no one there. It was as if it was an empty place. Even the Wanghan Tianzuan outside lost track of Ling Xiao's aura. After all, Ling Xiao had prepared 2 layers of protection. First, he directly adjusted the template to the level of death. This way, Ling Xiao would no longer have any aura of a living person. Then he set up a concealment array outside. If this could still be discovered, the Wanghan Tianzuan would have broken through to a higher realm. This kid is really powerful. The Wanghan Tianzuan smiled and also sat down cross-legged. Among the younger generation, there was a lot of pressure on these celestial venerables. Yuehua School. Among the mountains, there was a mountain peak that was actually an active volcano. It was filled with hot magma all year round. Ordinary people couldn't get close to it at all. Even the animals and plants that lived there were completely resistant to the high temperature. Even the magma couldn't melt them. This mountain peak belonged to a newly promoted elder of the Yuehua School, the flame deity. At this time, on a road leading to the volcano, Heisua was completely soaked. The terrifying heat was difficult for even a third-layer transcendent realm cultivator like him to bear. Every time he came here, it was like he was suffering. On both sides of the road stood several lava lizards. These lizards looked as if they were made of lava. Their hard shells combined with their terrifying strength made even a first-layer transcendent realm cultivator have to be careful. Sua's expression was very ugly. He knew very well why his master had called him here this time. A trivial Ling Xiao, he had spent more than a month and still hadn't been able to deal with him. On the contrary, the people on his side had been killed one by one. Yang Cheng, Gong Yang Nu, Tuobashan Jinming. Even Wang Feng had almost been killed. Li Anil could only tuck his tail between his legs in front of Ling Xiao. As an inner sect disciple, he was powerless to do anything about it. It would be great if Ling Xiao left the sect. At that time, he would definitely not let the sect know if he made a move. But as long as Ling Xiao remained in the sect, there was nothing he could do. The sect's rules stated that inner sect disciples were not allowed to interfere with outer sect matters. He didn't want to ruin his future just to deal with Ling Xiao. But the problem was that Ling Xiao was now the undisputed #1 disciple in the outer sect. No one was his opponent, so even if Heisua wanted to send someone to deal with Ling Xiao, he couldn't do it. Not to mention him. Even his master couldn't do anything to Ling Xiao. Yang Danlin, that old thing, was obviously determined to protect Ling Xiao. Lan Yu, that little girl, had been fed some kind of soup by Ling Xiao that she was actually willing to risk her life to protect him. There was also the tower master of the Desperation Tower, who seemed to have a good impression of Ling Xiao. Wasn't he just a piece of trash with a treasure-grade body? Why did so many people think so highly of him? He couldn't understand. He really couldn't understand. He was very clear that he had already become the laughingstock of the inner sect. Many of his fellow disciples were laughing at him behind his back for not being able to deal with a trivial outer sect disciple. As a result, this outer sect disciple had developed to the point where he couldn't be dealt with. What should he do? Shizuan would definitely ask about it. Chapter 324. The volcanic crater was right in front of him. So Heisua didn't dare to think about it anymore and became cautious. Novel. In front of the volcanic crater, there were 2 huge lava lizards. The 2 lizards glanced at Heisua and then lay down again, probably recognizing him as one of their own. Goo! Heisua swallowed hard, his heart filled with fear. Because these 2 huge lava lizards were 4 or 5 meters tall and nearly 10 meters long. Not only were they huge, but their strength was also close to the transcendent realm 9th layer. According to the classification of vicious beasts, they were Class 9 top vicious beasts. The ferocious beast that gave Master Baiyun a headache in Tianfeng City was only a Class 1 low-tier ferocious beast. These two vicious beasts in front of him could easily kill He Suo with a wave of their claws. One had to know that, in terms of pure combat strength, these two Class 9 top vicious beasts were actually not inferior to a master who had just entered the Heaven Realm. It was just that they were not as smart as a Heaven Realm master and did not have as many means as a Heaven Realm master. Seeing the two lava lizards move aside, He Suo breathed a sigh of relief and then walked into the volcanic crater. Even if it was an active volcano, it would not erupt often. However, in order to cultivate, the flame deity could make this volcano continuously spew magma, so except for the path up the mountain, the rest of the mountain was completely surrounded by magma, making it impossible to enter or exit at will. Above the volcanic crater, there was actually a floating palace. A metal chain made of an unknown material hung in the air, and the palace was surrounded by boiling magma. Even the walls of the palace were constantly maintained at a temperature of tens of thousands of degrees. However, in this environment, the flame deity sat there very comfortably, holding a book in his hand and reading it. When he was not angry, the flame deity looked gentle and refined, like a middle-aged scholar in his 40s. In fact, he was a few years older than Grandmaster Baiyun, already more than 100 years old. The lifespan of a Heaven Realm cultivator was 100 years, longer than a Transcendent Realm cultivator, about 300 years. In other words, Empyrean Demon Flame was actually still very young. He Suo stood there trembling with fear. Although he was the flame deity's disciple, he never dared to be impudent in front of the flame deity. Especially after he was seriously injured by Ling Xiao, the flame deity was already very disappointed in him. If he made another mistake, he was afraid that this master of his would kill him like a thunderbolt. "Master, what instructions do you have for me?" He Suo asked respectfully. "Tell me, what's the situation with Ling Xiao now? Oh, and tell me about the others." "Although Baiyun is crippled, I will not allow any of his disciples to grow up smoothly in Yuehua School. It was said that once one's cultivation reached a certain level, their mentality would change, and they would no longer bicker with small fries. However, this saying was not true for the flame deity. This person had always been cautious. Even if there was the slightest threat, he would mercilessly eliminate it before it sprouted. He would never give the other party any chance to take revenge on him. Disciple is guilty. I can't even deal with a few outer sect disciples. Please punish me, master." He Suo hurriedly knelt down, trembling with fear. He did not even dare to look up at the flame deity. "Answer the question," the flame deity just said coldly. He Suo swallowed his saliva and replied cautiously, "There are a total of 3 disciples of Baiyun who entered Yuehua School. At present, Cold Plum's whereabouts are unknown. It seems that she went missing a few days after joining Yuehua School, and no one has gone to look for her. Dai Yuling became Lan Yu, Er's disciple. Her martial soul was obviously destroyed by Jin Ming and others, but it miraculously came back and is even stronger than before. As for Ling Xiao, since Master came to the outer sect and took Wang Feng away, he became the #1 outer sect disciple. Now, the Medicine Hall's Hall Master, the Array Hall's Hall Master, the Desperation Tower's Hall Master, the Moonlight Tower's Hall Master, and Lan Yu all have a good impression of him, especially the Medicine Hall's Hall Master, Yang Danlin, and the Medicine Hall's Vice Hall Master, Lan Yu. I'm afraid that they will protect him with their lives. Although He Suo knew that his master would not be happy, he had to say it. He did not dare to lie. Once he did, the result would be more terrible and the trouble would be bigger. So, Master really has no way to deal with Ling Xiao? The flame deity's face turned cold. After a while, he said viciously, "Ling Xiao must die. Just his talent in alchemy alone is enough to kill him." He Suo understood why his master said that, because once an alchemist, an outstanding alchemist, had reached a certain level, even if his own cultivation was not good, he could still gather many experts to help him. At that time, Ling Xiao would be more difficult to deal with than a celestial realm expert. Yang Danlin was a good example. The flame deity could definitely kill Yang Danlin one-on-one, but he did not dare to do it. Yang Danlin always had a celestial realm expert protecting her for free, and her only request was to help with alchemy. Disciple knows. Master, please tell me how to deal with this kid. Hey, Suo really could not think of any way to deal with Ling Xiao. He could only hope that the flame deity could think of a way. You have to deal with this matter. It's not good for Master to appear. Speaking of this, the flame deity suddenly showed a sneer. When Master comes out of seclusion next time, the Desperation Tower's Hall Master, the Moonlight Tower's Hall Master, and the Ray Hall's Hall Master will all be nothing. You have to know that in this world, the fist speaks. Disciple understands. Hei Suo nodded. He was very clear about the flame deity's meaning. He wanted to wait until he came out of seclusion before making a decision. When Master is in seclusion, you will secretly make arrangements and continue to rope in inner disciples. However, you must be careful not to alarm the sect's upper echelons. Otherwise, Master will not be able to protect you. The flame deity said, in addition, don't forget the annual moon arrival pagoda ascension ceremony. Although your aptitude is not as good as your junior brother Ming Tian's, you still have an immortal, grade, treasure body. You are stronger than most of the sect's disciples. Seize this opportunity, and you will be like a carp leaping over the dragon gate. Hei Suo could not help but be happy. He hurriedly lowered his head and said, Disciple obeys! It was said that there would be a fixed period of time every year when the Yuehua school would not see daylight. The moon would always hang in the sky above the Moonlight Pagoda, looking very close. This period would last for about 7 days and was called the Moon Arrival Festival. During this period of time, one could climb the Moonlight Pagoda and obtain all kinds of opportunities. This was the Moon Arrival Pagoda Ascension Ceremony. The Pagoda Ascension Ceremony was open to all the disciples of the Yuehua school. However, it was basically unheard of for outer disciples to be able to enter the Moonlight Pagoda. If they could not even pass the first stage, they would not be able to find their own opportunities. All right, you can go. Remember Master's instructions. Disciple will definitely not forget. Chapter 325. Outside the crater stood a young man and a girl. The young man was Ming Tian, and the girl was Su Ying. These two people clearly joined the flame deity later than Hei Suo, but they were valued by the flame deity far more than Hei Suo. This made Hei Suo extremely uncomfortable in his heart. But even so, he did not dare to get angry. Facing these two people, he could only reveal an unwilling smile. Ming Tian had exceptional aptitude. Su Ying had special talent. These two types of people were the favorite of celestial venerables. The flame deity took in many disciples, but they were generally just in-name disciples. For example, Hei Suo Wang Feng and Hei Suo's other senior brother and senior sister. But Ming Tian and Su Ying had the qualifications to become the flame deity's personal disciples. It simply made people tremble with jealousy. Ling Xiao did not know what happened in the volcano palace. He was currently wholeheartedly cultivating. The cold air of the Guanghan Palace constantly entered his body, benefiting him greatly. This kind of cold air was even more powerful than the Heaven Essence bone-changing pill. However, the Heavenly Dragon Golden Body required too much energy. If the energy needed to go from the 4th level to the 5th level was divided into 10 stages. Ling Xiao had just reached the peak of the 4th level and entered the 1st stage. This roughly 2 hours of cultivation had already filled up a stage's energy, but the further he went, the more energy he needed. Although the filling speed did not change, The time needed to fill up the energy was longer. However, Ling Xiao was very satisfied with this speed. If he purely used medicinal pills to cultivate, perhaps hundreds of heaven essence, bone-changing pills would not be enough to fill up a stage's energy. No wonder this place was regarded as a forbidden area in the Yuehua school. Only with permission could one enter. Such a good place to cultivate. The energy inside could not possibly be inexhaustible. Therefore, it had to be used sparingly and only for geniuses. He was familiar with array formations, so he roughly observed the array formation of the Guanghan Palace. This was a very special kind of qi-gathering grand array, roughly low yellow grade. But even so, it could repeatedly convert the natural energy between heaven and earth into spiritual energy, and then use the cold energy to confine it in the Guanghan Palace. Ling Xiao felt that he should be able to modify this qi-gathering array into a small-scale array, and then inlay it on his jewelry and wear it on his body. That way, no matter when, his body would be able to constantly absorb fresh spirit qi. Unknowingly, an entire day had passed. Ling Xiao could feel that his strength was still accumulating and increasing. The heavenly dragon golden body had entered the 5th stage from the 4th stage to the 5th stage. At this rate, he would probably be able to reach the 5th level after a few more rounds. Ling Xiao was a little excited at the thought of being able to completely transform his body into a transcendent being on the 5th level. Yang Kai's current soul force and internal force had actually reached the transcendent realm's requirements, but his body still hadn't reached the transcendent realm's standard. In fact, if he wanted to, he could rely on his soul's potential to directly break through to the transcendent realm. They could also rely on their potential to break through to the transcendent realm. But he didn't do that. He was already at the final step, and he couldn't be a cripple trying to break through to the next level. Once he broke through to the transcendent realm, his foundation would be much more stable, and his strength would be much greater than an ordinary transcendence. In any case, his body wasn't that far behind. Moonlight filled the sky. Night had fallen. Inside the Guanghan Palace, a silvery white light completely enveloped it. Strangely, when it was nighttime, the Guanghan Palace absorbed the power of the moon, and the effect was even better than during the day. The Yuehua school was probably named this because of this. Ling Xiao calmed down and no longer thought about other things. Instead, he focused on cultivating. His entire body and mind were immersed in the moonlight, as if he was wrapped in a strange power. Bathing in it, it was extremely comfortable. Strange things would always happen in the middle of the night. Someone definitely knew about the 3 flaws of the Guanghan Palace. Perhaps the people of the Array Formation Hall had purposely left these 3 flaws as a gift. Asterisk so. Asterisk 3 silhouettes entered the Guanghan Palace through 3 different openings. Then they gathered at the Qi-Ai where Ling Xiao was cultivating. At this time, Wang Han Tianzuan had already entered a deep state of cultivation, leaving only 2 first-order Transcendent Realm guards to guard the entrance. How could these 2 people have discovered such an anomaly? Haha, great, Junior Brother Wang, I didn't expect you to know about such a flaw. That cold-faced woman, Wang Han Tianzuan, is too hateful, actually not giving our honored master face. The one who spoke was a woman's voice. If Ling Xiao opened his eyes at this moment, it wouldn't be difficult to recognize this woman as Su Ying. The junior brother Wang she spoke of was Wang Feng, who had just been promoted to the inner sect. The other person was obviously a disciple of the Ray Hall, his cultivation also around the first order transcendent realm. If one wanted to find these flaws, it would be impossible without a disciple who was proficient in spirit arrays. You too cultivate here. You must leave before dawn. Otherwise, if you are discovered by Wang Han Tianzuan, you will die. After the array hall disciple gave some instructions, he turned around and left, giving Wang Feng and Su Ying each a wooden token with some patterns engraved on it. This would make it easier for the 2 of them to leave this place. Senior sister, hurry up and cultivate. Use your dual cultivation method. This opportunity cost me 1,000 low-rank spirit stones. We can't waste it. Wang Feng said eagerly. Why are you in such a hurry? Our ninja clan's dual cultivation method requires physical intimacy. You and I haven't developed any feelings for each other yet. So let's cultivate separately first. After an hour, when you feel something, it won't be too late to begin dual cultivation. Su Ying's eyes flashed with a trace of disgust. If she had to choose a dual cultivation method partner, she would definitely choose Ming Tian. However, Ming Tian was completely focused on cultivation and didn't care about anything else. She, Su Ying, was a beauty capable of causing the downfall of nations. Yet that guy really wasn't tempted at all. She had repeatedly asked to dual cultivate with Ming Tian, but had been directly rejected. Did he think that her talent was bad? Damn Ming Tian, what an arrogant guy. Thinking about this, Su Ying sighed helplessly, looking at Wang Feng, who had already entered a state of cultivation. She gently took off her outer layer of clothing. This would be more beneficial for absorbing the cold qi. 2 hours later, Wang Feng opened his eyes. Looking at the hazy figure in the cold qi, he suddenly felt a burst of heat in his lower abdomen. Gulp! He swallowed a mouthful of saliva, then pounced on her without caring about anything else. Just at this moment, the chaotic fluctuations of the aura disturbed Ling Xiao, who was in the middle of cultivation. Although Ling Xiao was in the middle of cultivation, he still released a trace of Zhan Yuan to monitor the situation around him. Chapter 326. Ling Xiao opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the chaotic aura with some displeasure. In that instant, a blush appeared on his face. He actually felt a little restless. That kind of scene that made one's mouth dry up to the extreme made him, a 14-year-old youth who had never experienced anything between a man and a woman, feel his blood boil and his true essence become restless. This also caused his originally well-hidden aura to leak out. Who is it? Wang Feng and Su Ying, who were in the middle of their business, were startled. The two of them put on their clothes almost at the same time and then stared at Ling Xiao. Su Ying? Wang Feng? At this moment, Ling Xiao finally saw who these two people were. He was a little surprised. How could these two people be together? Didn't Su Ying say that she wanted to avenge her fiancé's Wulong? How long had it been since she entered the sect? Was she already doing this kind of thing? Moreover, it was in Guanghan Temple. If Wanghan Tianzuan found out, these two people would probably be killed on the spot. Come out, sneaky bastard. You really have no sense of shame, actually sneaking around to spy on the affairs of men and women. Su Ying shouted angrily. Haha, it's really a case of the wicked complaining first. Ling Xiao removed the outer concealment array and then slowly revealed himself. Of course, before this, he had taken back his 2 clones. The moment he took back his clones, Ling Xiao couldn't help feeling a little surprised. The Divine Prison King's fist had actually broken through the final shackles and mastered the final move, destruction. This was a punch that had reached the grand accomplishment stage, capable of completely destroying one's soul and body. Its power was terrifying, even stronger than the previous moves combined. Ling Xiao. Su Ying and Wang Feng also recognized Ling Xiao, and the two of them suddenly formed a pincer attack. If Ling Xiao tried to escape, they could attack at the same time, not giving Ling Xiao the slightest chance to escape. Asterisk Kong, asterisk 2 terrifying auras rushed towards Ling Xiao. I didn't expect you to also break through. Ling Xiao soon discovered that Su Ying was also a first-order transcendent realm cultivator. It seemed that cultivating with heavenly venerate demon flame was faster than cultivating on his own. Right now, Su Ying's cultivation likely already surpassed Zhaoji. Clearly, the two of them had similar potential. The two people in front of Yang Kai were both first-order transcendent realm cultivators. If it were an ordinary half-step grandmaster, they would have already died. This meant that the two of them were out to take his life. However, his aura was so strong that it could not be compared with an ordinary half-step master. Therefore, the aura of these two people did not affect him at all. Ling Xiao, if you can't explain yourself today, we'll definitely bring you shameless bastard to Master Mo Yen for punishment. Wang Feng berated. What a joke. I'm cultivating here, and I never imagined that the two of you would actually be doing such improper things beside me. You actually dare to say that I'm shameless? You're really twisting the truth. Ling Xiao looked at Su Ying and Wang Feng, wondering what the consequences would be if he killed these two here. He was really a little surprised that he would encounter these two people here. One of them kept saying that he wanted to kill him. The other directly tried to kill him. One wanted to avenge her fiancé, and the other wanted to avenge his life and death friend. What was more interesting was that both of them actually worshipped the flame deity as their master. It could be said that there was a deep hatred between him and these two. If he didn't kill them, they would kill him. Was this an opportunity given to him by the heavens? By the way, how did the two of you enter this Guanghan temple? I heard that for the past month, no one has been allowed to enter this Guanghan temple unless they have Guanghan Tianzuan's Guanghan token. Where is your Guanghan token? Ling Xiao suddenly thought of something. Did these two sneak in through a flaw in the Guanghan temple's spirit array? If that was the case, then it would be interesting. Sure enough, when he mentioned the Guanghan token, Wang Feng and Su Ying's expressions changed drastically. They didn't have a Guanghan token. They had just bribed a senior brother in the Spirit Array Hall and secretly came in to cultivate. If Guanghan Tianzuan found out about this, then the situation would be serious. The two of them wouldn't be able to escape the fate of having their cultivation crippled and then being expelled from the sect. After all, Guanghan Tianzuan had always been at odds with the flame deity. This was something that many people in the sect knew. Who could guarantee that Guanghan Tianzuan wouldn't use this opportunity to take revenge? You're asking us? Then how did you get in? I don't think you have a Guanghan token. After all, you're just an outer sect disciple. Su Ying questioned. If it was an inner sect disciple who trespassed the forbidden area, then the worst case scenario would be having their cultivation crippled and being expelled from the sect. If it was an outer sect disciple, then there would be no reason to kill him without mercy. This was the rule of the Yuehua school. When she asked this question, Su Ying couldn't help but feel a little smug. She secretly rejoiced in her heart. If she hadn't reacted fast enough, she would have been led by the nose by Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao sneered and waved his hand. A jade-white token appeared in his hand. The thick, cold aura on the token couldn't be faked. You actually have a Guanghan token. Su Ying and Wang Feng's expressions changed drastically. The murderous intent in their eyes intensified. Looking at the two of them, Ling Xiao finally made a decision. He had thought about it. Even if he killed Wang Feng and Su Ying here, it would only make the flame deity hate him even more. He wouldn't be breaking the sect's rules, because with the Guanghan token, he could attack anyone who trespassed into the Guanghan Hall. If the other party resisted or even attacked first, then he could kill without mercy. He wanted to let the other party attack first. You didn't expect this, did you? Ling Xiao smiled faintly and said, previously, Hall Master Yang refined a furnace of precious pills for Guanghan Tianzuan. So Guanghan Tianzuan gave me this Guanghan token and told me to enter the Guanghan Hall to cultivate at will. I was also responsible for maintaining the array formation of the Guanghan Hall. I didn't expect to run into you two, who snuck into the forbidden area. What do you think I should do? Although his voice was very soft and he didn't even use a harsh tone, Su Ying and Wang Feng felt that there was no way out at all. The two of them looked at each other and seemed to have made up their minds. If they killed Ling Xiao here, then secretly left and killed that senior brother of the Array Formation Hall, no one would know about it. Not only would they not be punished, but they might even be able to come here often to dual cultivate in the future. Humph, Ling Xiao, don't be too complacent. With my master, the flame deity here, Even if you call Wang Han Tianzuan, it's meaningless. Su Ying snorted coldly. She was clearly stalling for time. At the same time, she was secretly accumulating her vital essence, preparing to attack together with Wang Feng and kill Ling Xiao instantly with lightning speed. They definitely didn't want to give Ling Xiao a chance to use the Guang Han token, because as long as the incantation of the Guang Han token was recited, Wang Han Tianzuan would know that something had happened here. By then, the two of them would definitely die. Chapter 327. The Flame Deity can't do whatever he wants in the Yuehua school. In the end, he's just a newly promoted inner sect elder. There are plenty of people stronger than him. Ling Xiao naturally knew that the other party was accumulating strength to kill him, but he also needed time to prepare for a surprise attack. It would be best if he could kill these two in 2 or 3 moves. Otherwise, once the Flame Deity was alerted, Wang Han Tianzuan would appear. But at that time, he wouldn't have the chance to kill these two. Do it! In an instant, Wang Feng and Su Ying moved at the same time. The two of them used the move they had been accumulating for a long time. Puchi! Wang Feng, who had just jumped up, was suddenly sent flying back. A sharp flying sword had pierced his neck. Ling Xiao, who hadn't used the Imperial Sword technique for a long time, didn't let go of this killing move. The Imperial Sword technique pursued the ultimate combination of speed, power, and surprise. Although Wang Feng was a first-layer Transcendent Realm cultivator, at such a close distance, he had no chance to react at all. The fine artifact-level Big Dipper flying sword emitted a chilling aura that instantly filled Wang Feng's entire body. In order to kill Wang Feng in one move, Ling Xiao didn't hesitate to use the Moon True Essence he had just obtained. Although it was only a little bit of the Moon True Essence attached to the flying sword, the cold aura was still terrifying. He also suffered some internal injuries, but he cultivated the heavenly dragon golden body, so these internal injuries were nothing to worry about. Seeing Wang Feng die, Su Ying, who had been rushing forward, suddenly stopped. She then turned back and madly ran toward the opening. If Ling Xiao could kill Wang Feng in one move, then he definitely had the strength to kill her in one move. But she didn't want to die. She couldn't die. While running for her life, she took out a token and chanted the incantation on it. It was the Flame Deity's Demonic Flame token. As long as she chanted the incantation, the Flame Deity would know. But in the end, Su Ying couldn't escape death. A terrifying force came from behind her and slammed into her body. She felt as if her body was being torn apart by something. It actually exploded in an instant. This move of destruction is truly terrifying. Ling Xiao involuntarily sucked in a breath of cold air as he watched Su Ying turn into ashes. The might displayed by annihilation was simply astonishing. He was just giving it a try. He didn't expect to kill Su Ying just like that. Withdraw! Seeing that a ninja spirit and a martial spirit were about to fly away, Ling Xiao rolled up his sleeves and collected Wang Feng and Su Ying's martial spirits. Ling Xiao didn't need their martial souls, so he chose to devour them directly, turning them into nutrients for his other martial souls. Up until now, Ling Xiao's 5 other martial spirits, Ghost Ship, Blood Shadow, Thunder Bear, Dark Cloud, and Giant Sword, had all condensed into physical entities and entered the 3rd stage of the complete soul. Only when a martial soul reached this stage could it display its full potential. However, the strength of the martial soul still depended on the strength of the martial soul. In addition, above the complete soul was the out-of-body, remnant soul, complete soul, out-of-body, wandering soul, lightning tribulation, divine soul. These were the 6 levels of martial soul development, but each level was divided into several stages. Ling Xiao's current 5 martial souls belonged to the 3rd stage of the complete soul, physical entity, which was also the last stage of the complete soul. Once he entered the out-of-body level, he still needed to continuously cultivate and reach a total of 9 stages. One breath, 1 minute, 1 moment, 1 moment, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 season, and 1 year. It could be said that the cultivation of martial souls was not a simple matter. Only by advancing side by side with cultivation could one truly display the combat strength they should have. Ling Xiao's expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly sat down cross-legged. Two extremely terrifying auras descended upon the Guanghan Palace at the same time. On one side was the flame deity, and on the other side was Wang Han Tianzuan. One side was blazing hot, the other was ice cold. This made Ling Xiao's body extremely uncomfortable. Heaven Realm Masters are really powerful. They haven't even made a move yet, and I'm already feeling so uncomfortable. Once they start fighting, won't they defy the heavens? Ling Xiao secretly clenched his fists. It seemed that he had to continue to work hard. Otherwise, he would continue to suffer like this. Guanghan, you want to stop me? The flame deity looked at Wang Han Tianzuan and asked sharply, Mo Yen, you trespassed into the Guanghan Palace without permission. When did you ever give me face? If I don't stop you today, who am I supposed to stop? Wang Han Tianzuan was actually very surprised. She had never expected that Ling Xiao, a trivial outer sect disciple, would actually possess such terrifying combat strength, actually being able to kill 2 first-layer transcendent realm cultivators. When she arrived, she had noticed that the air was filled with a chilling aura, and the auras of the 2 cultivators had yet to completely subside. However, Ling Xiao had the Guanghan token, so no matter what, she couldn't allow the flame deity to take action over this matter. Guanghan, you'd best think clearly. This little brat killed 2 of my disciples, one of whom was even my direct disciple. If I don't kill him, I won't be able to vent my anger. The flame deity seemed to really intend to take action, and even if Wang Han Tianzuan wanted to stop him, it would be useless. Senior Guanghan, not only did those 2 take advantage of a flaw in the Guanghan Palace's spirit array to secretly cultivate inside, but after this disciple tried to stop them, they actually tried to kill this disciple. This disciple was forced to act. Ling Xiao said loudly, neither servile nor overbearing. He had to give Wang Han Tianzuan a reason to take action. Not only did someone else's disciple break into the restricted area he was guarding, but he also tried to kill the person who held the Guanghan token. If he didn't take action, he wouldn't be able to survive in the future. Did you show your Guanghan token? Wang Han Tianzuan asked. I did. Ling Xiao nodded. He wasn't afraid that Wang Han Tianzuan would get to the bottom of it. Anyway, the incident happened less than 15 minutes ago, and he could use some precious weapons to reconstruct the scene. Although that would expose his sword control technique, it didn't matter. Although the sword control technique was difficult to cultivate, it wasn't impossible, so there was nothing to hide. He only had the mountain river martial soul, which couldn't be exposed no matter what. As for the rest, it didn't matter. Wang Han Tianzuan took out a blank scroll and threw it into the air. After a while, some cold air flowed into the scroll, and the previous scene was completely displayed. Mo Yen, what else do you have to say? Wang Han Tianzuan was now completely justified. She could even hand it over to the sect and ask the higher-ups to deal with it impartially. The flame deity would then be in trouble. Good. Very good. Ling Xiao, you're ruthless. The flame deity stared coldly at Ling Xiao. He really didn't expect that a mere martial vein realm warrior would bring him such great humiliation. He had personally attacked twice, but he still couldn't kill him. It was really hateful. After saying that, he turned around and left, leaving behind Su Ying and Wang Feng's corpses. Wang Han Tianzuan breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 328. Wang Han Tianzuan didn't want to fight with the flame deity. That was because, in terms of cultivation, she was almost the same as the flame deity. But in terms of fighting power, she was afraid that she was not the flame deity's opponent. If the other party really wanted to fight, she would definitely be injured. So, when the flame deity left, she was naturally relieved. However, all of a sudden, her expression changed drastically. Just when she relaxed a little, a big hand in the sky fiercely slapped toward Ling Xiao. She only had time to weaken the power of the big hand, but she couldn't completely block it. The terrible power directly landed on Ling Xiao's head. Ling Xiao thought that he was going to die. Even if the palm only had 10% of the flame deity's power, it was not something that he could bear. But at that moment, the mountain and river martial spirit crazily revolved, and the fusion with his soul seemed to increase crazily. When the palm hit his head, he seemed to see a figure standing behind him, and then the figure met the palm. That person looked exactly like him. Boom! After a loud explosion, Ling Xiao completely lost consciousness. When he woke up from his coma again, Dai Yuling and Lan Yu were by his side. Dai Yuling's face was full of tears, and her cheeks were full of tears. Lan Yu was not much better. Seeing that he woke up, the two girls happily rushed to him like magpies. They didn't care about the difference between men and women, and they held his hands tightly. You really scared people to death. You were unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights. Lan Yu cried and laughed at the same time. She was very happy. 3 days and 3 nights. Ling Xiao smiled bitterly. He felt that it was just a moment. He didn't expect that 3 days and 3 nights had passed. What a waste of time. That's right. You don't know this, but Guanghan Celestial and Hall Master Yang went all the way to the Volcano Palace and severely injured Celestial Lord Devilflame. If it weren't for the people from the Law Enforcement Hall, Celestial Lord Devilflame would have been killed. Dai Yuling said excitedly, "Are Senior Yang and Senior Guanghan okay?" Ling Xiao asked hurriedly, "They are also injured, but you also know that old Hall Master Yang is the Medicine Hall Master. Those injuries are nothing. The Flame Deity, on the other hand, will need at least a month to recover." This time he actually disregarded his status as an elder and attacked you, an outer sect disciple. This is considered a violation of the sect's rules. Lan Yu sighed. The hateful thing is that the Law Enforcement Hall actually protected the Flame Deity. They said that he is a rare genius in the sect. Since he is already injured, they won't punish him. They even sent him to the Moonlight Pagoda to recuperate and cultivate. It's fine as long as Senior Yang and Senior Guanghan are fine. Ling Xiao was only an outer sect disciple, so he couldn't control the decisions of the Law Enforcement Hall. He was most concerned about the safety of the 2 seniors who had avenged him. Of course, there was also his master, Yuan Venerate. However, he couldn't ask this question. "Help me up. I'll go and see Senior Yang." Ling Xiao was still concerned about his master. He believed that his master, Yuan Venerate, had made a move. Otherwise, Yang Danlin and Wang Han Tianzuan might not have been able to seriously injure the Flame Deity. "Forget it. Old Hall Master, Yang, told me to tell you that your master is fine. Do you really want to acknowledge him as your master?" Lan Yu asked doubtfully. "Fine." Ling Xiao heaved a sigh of relief. The master Yang Danlin was referring to was naturally Yuan Venerate. "It's good that you're fine. I really need to have a good rest." Ling Xiao closed his eyes as he spoke. He wanted to check the current situation of his body. When the Flame Deity's sky-covering palm had struck him in Guanghan Hall, he had clearly felt something change in his body. However, when he looked inside his body, he discovered that there was nothing unusual about his mountain river martial soul other than the fact that it had almost reached 99% fusion with his soul. In addition, his heavenly dragon golden body had also reached the 10th stage. He was only half a step away from smoothly advancing to the 5th stage. Now he could kill an ordinary first-level transcendent realm martialist just by relying on his physical strength. This was a really big gain. Not only had the Flame Deity's palm not killed him, but it had also turned a disaster into a blessing in disguise. This was probably something that the flame deity had never expected. He was only one step away from advancing. Ling Xiao's current situation was that his soul force was terrifyingly powerful. Even the soul of a Sky Man powerhouse might not be stronger than his. In terms of cultivation, he had already reached the level of a half-step grandmaster and had accumulated 99% of his strength. In terms of physical strength, his heavenly dragon golden body was also close to entering the 5th stage. It could be said that as long as his heavenly dragon golden body broke through, he would be able to enter the transcendent realm at any time. It was just that he was still one step away. This required an opportunity and could not be rushed. However, he was not in a hurry. Once he entered the inner sect, he would directly face He Suo, so he had to lay a good foundation so that after advancing to the 1st level transcendent realm, he would not have to fear He Suo. Therefore, a breakthrough in his heavenly dragon golden body was necessary. For the next half a month, Ling Xiao had been recuperating and recovering from his injuries. The attacks of a Skyman powerhouse were really terrifying. Even if he had a strong recovery ability, it still took him half a month to fully recover. However, this recovery stage was also very important for him. His cultivation had improved too quickly during this period, so it was inevitable that some problems would arise. Therefore, he seized the time to use the analysis and practice ability of his mountain and river martial spirit to solve the problems in his cultivation one by one. Even the incorrect method of using his martial skills was solved one after another. On the day of his recovery, Ling Xiao had planned to visit Old Hall Master Yang and Wang Han Tinzuin, but both of them were in retreat, so he did not go. Interestingly, there were actually people in the outer sect who issued a challenge to him. One was Zhao Ji and the other was Zhao Ci. In addition, there were a few other outer sect disciples who were originally ranked in the top 10. Of course, this was only an outer sect challenge, not a life and death challenge. Ling Xiao did not have any deep hatred with these people, so there was no harm in taking this opportunity to practice some of the things in his mind. Therefore, he did not refuse these challenges. As a result, he inadvertently broke the record again. In one day, he received challenges from as many as 30 outer sect disciples, and these disciples were all half-step masters, especially Zhao Ji, who is now second in the outer sect. He could have broken through to the transcendent realm and entered the inner sect earlier, but he perceived the benefits of a steady path from Ling Xiao. Therefore, he deliberately suppressed his cultivation and did not break through. This was actually a very smart approach. Otherwise, once he entered the inner sect, he could only start from the bottom. Chapter 329. On the same day, Ling Xiao fought 30 half-step masters alone. These people were the elites of the outer sect disciples. Most of the disciples couldn't even last one move under Ling Xiao's attacks. During this process, Ling Xiao even gave these disciples a few pointers. He didn't think too much about it. He just thought that since they were all fellow disciples, this kind of thing was nothing to him. However, what he didn't expect was that his actions would win him the full support of most of the outer sect disciples. It could be said that even if Ling Xiao entered the inner sect in the future, the entire outer sect would become his supporters. This was a force that was hard to come by. It might not be obvious normally, but the inner sect disciples were also from the outer sect. If these people all entered the inner sect, they would undoubtedly bring great benefits to Ling Xiao. Zhao Ci was still a little arrogant and old-fashioned. She was defeated by Ling Xiao in one move, but she was still unwilling to listen to Ling Xiao's pointers. Ling Xiao was too lazy to pay attention to this kind of woman. Zhao Ji and Zhao Ci were brother and sister, but their personalities were completely different. Before the challenge, Zhao Ji said that he hoped that Ling Xiao could exchange a few more moves with him and help him see the flaws in his cultivation. Ling Xiao naturally didn't refuse. He could have finished the battle in 10 moves, but he exchanged more than 100 moves with Zhao Ji. While giving pointers to Zhao Ji, he also gained a lot of benefits from it. After all, Zhao Ji was also a genius. There were some ideas that Ling Xiao didn't think of, but this time he learned them all. With senior brother Ling's current strength, I'm afraid that cultivators in the first layer of the transcendent realm are no longer in his eyes. After the challenge, Zhao Ji sighed helplessly. It seemed that if Ling Xiao didn't enter the inner sect, he would never be able to become the #1 outer sect disciple. Yes, it's not an exaggeration to say that he's the strongest outer sect disciple in the history of Yuehua School. After this challenge, Ling Xiao was basically the only one in the outer sect. However, being invincible in the outer sect didn't mean anything. After the challenge ended, he returned to his cave abode to continue cultivating. Although he didn't waste much time during this half a month of recovery, he didn't use all his energy to cultivate. After this challenge, he had also received many inspirations from the 30 outer sect disciples and was prepared to integrate all of them into his own cultivation. When 3 people walk together, there is bound to be someone to learn from. Although it was easy to say, it was difficult for many people to do it. However, Ling Xiao had always done this. Even if the person's cultivation level was much lower than his, there was still something that made his eyes light up. Right now, there were only 2 difficulties that he needed to overcome. The first was the accumulation of power from the heavenly dragon golden body. As long as he could break through to the 5th stage, he would be able to break through to the transcendent realm. This level of difficulty was much more difficult than a single potential or dual potential promotion. However, once promoted, one would become incomparably powerful. Furthermore, with a solid foundation, one's cultivation would progress by leaps and bounds. The other was the fusion of the mountain and river martial spirit with his own soul. Ling Xiao didn't have any good ideas about this. After the fusion rate reached 99%, it seemed to stagnate. This wasn't like the heavenly dragon golden body, which could still be cultivated. This fusion rate could only be achieved by finding some kind of opportunity. Perhaps it could become 100%. He was looking forward to what would happen to the mountain and river martial spirit once the fusion was perfect. What would happen to him? There was no way to ask others because no one had experience in this area. Everything could only rely on his own efforts. On this day, he learned that Wang Han Tianzuan and Yang Danlin had come out of seclusion, so he hurriedly stopped cultivating and went to pay his respects to the 2 seniors. These 2 people fought with the flame deity for his sake and suffered varying degrees of injuries. They even almost fell out with the law enforcement hall because of this. He had to personally thank them. When he went to Yang Danlin's cave abode, Ling Xiao discovered that Wang Han Tianzuan was also there. The 2 seemed to be discussing some secret matters. Ling Xiao, you've come. Come in quickly. Yang Danlin was still as amiable as before. She was simply an old grandpa. Wang Han Tianzuan was still as cold as ever, but Ling Xiao could feel the goodwill emanating from her body. Disciple pays his respects to Senior Yang and Senior Guanghan. Ling Xiao didn't see any trace of Yuan venerates when he walked into the cave abode. He suddenly felt very uneasy. What exactly had happened? He frowned and waited for Yang Danlin and Wang Han Tianzuan to speak. Have a seat, Ling Xiao. It seems like there are some things that can't be hidden from you. Yang Danlin sighed. Did something happen to my master? Ling Xiao asked. He seemed very calm, but his heart was in turmoil. It's like this. Yang Danlin didn't hide anything from Ling Xiao. She roughly recounted what had happened while Ling Xiao had been unconscious. It turned out that Ling Xiao's life had been in danger after he had fainted. Even the Yuan Venerate felt that Ling Xiao had a very high chance of dying and that the chances of him surviving were no more than 30%. Because of this, the Yuan Venerate was furious. All this time, he had appeared to be harmless to humans and animals. But after taking in such a good disciple, in the end, he was killed. This caused him to be furious. Therefore, he and Yang Danlin had gone to find trouble with the flame deity. They had coincidentally met Wang Han Tianzuan there. The corpses of the lava lizards were everywhere around the volcano palace. Although Wang Han Tianzuan wasn't as concerned about Ling Xiao as the Yuan Venerate was, she was furious that the flame deity had actually dared to disregard his status and kill an outer sect disciple right under her nose. She had come here after sending Ling Xiao to Yang Danlin's cave abode and killed her way to the volcano palace. To be honest, the flame deity's strength had completely exceeded Wang Han Tianzuan's expectations. If Yang Danlin hadn't rushed over and the Yuan Venerate hadn't taken the risk to intervene, even Wang Han Tianzuan and Yang Danlin would have died there. However, the intervention of the Yuan Venerate had alarmed the law enforcement hall. The flame deity had been rescued, while the Yuan Venerate had been suppressed by the 5 law enforcement elders of the law enforcement hall. The 5 law enforcement elders could be considered the 5 strongest people in the Yuehua school, while the Yuan Venerate had obviously not recovered his strength. Even so, the 5 law enforcement elders had paid a heavy price in order to suppress the Yuan Venerate. "How is my master now?" Ling Xiao asked hurriedly. "He has been imprisoned on the top floor of the Moonlight Pagoda. There is an array formation left behind from ancient times to imprison demons. Even a Yuan Venerate cannot escape." Yang Danlin sighed. "These enforcement elders are too unreasonable. It was Heavenly Venerable Devil Flame who broke the rules first. Don't they care?" Ling Xiao said angrily, "Child, this is the rule of the mystic realm. The strong are respected." Chapter 330. I understand that, but I just don't like it. Ling Xiao gritted his teeth. If a sect doesn't reward and punish properly, it will fall sooner or later. You're right, but this is the current situation. Fortunately, your master injured the flame deity, and it will take at least a year for him to recover. Therefore, you should hurry up and cultivate. If you can't break through to the sky realm in a year, you should leave Yuehua school as soon as possible. Otherwise, no one will be able to help you. Yang Danlin nodded and said, "Didn't you say that I would recover in a month?" "A month? Humph. How can a Yuan Venerate's unique technique be so easy to break? It will take at least a year." Yang Danlin said disdainfully, "Those old guys in the law enforcement hall only know how to cultivate. They are complete amateurs in this aspect. A year." Ling Xiao gritted his teeth. Although the time frame was too tight, it wasn't impossible. It had to be known that it hadn't even been a year since he reached the transcendent realm from the first level of the martial vein realm. In the future, with the help of alchemy, array refinement, and higher-level martial arts, his cultivation would only improve even faster. "Don't worry, Senior Yang. I won't let you and my master down. He was captured because of me, so I will definitely save him." "Good. You have ambition. This king will do his best to help you in the future. If I don't ruthlessly destroy the flame deity's prestige, this king will never be able to vent his anger," Wang Han Tianzuan said loudly. "By the way, Ling Xiao, do you know that the Moon Arrival Festival is coming soon?" she suddenly asked. What is the Moon Arrival Festival? Ling Xiao had never heard of it before. If you want to break through to the sky realm in a year, then you must not miss the Moon Arrival Festival's Pagoda Ascension ceremony. The reason why the flame deity was able to advance so quickly was because of this Tower Ascension ceremony. Wang Han Tianzuan continued. The Pagoda Ascension ceremony is to climb the Moonlight Pagoda. In the past, the founder of the Yuehua school left behind this Moonlight Pagoda. It contains many special trial contents. It was specially designed for the Yuehua school to train warriors. Moonlight Pagoda, the #1 forbidden area of the Yuehua sect, which was filled with an ancient aura, flashed across Ling Xiao's mind. Since entering the sect, Yang Kai had only seen the Moonlight Treasure Tower from a distance, not even 100 meters from it. After all, the weakest cultivator guarding the Moonlight Treasure Tower was a 9th stage Transcendent Realm cultivator. The Moon Arrival Festival is held once a year, and the Pagoda Ascension Ceremony is the most important event of the Moon Arrival Festival. This is definitely an excellent opportunity for disciples who want to become successful. Yang Danlin continued Wang Han Tianzuan's words and said, although the Pagoda Ascension Ceremony is not restricted to inner or outer sect disciples, no outer sect disciple has ever broken into the official Pagoda Ascension Ceremony. Before the Moon Arrival Festival, I hope that you can break through to the transcendent realm as soon as possible and become an inner sect disciple. Ling Xiao asked jokingly, if an outer sect disciple succeeds in the Pagoda Ascension Ceremony, will there be additional rewards? He had only been joking, but Wang Han Tianzuan said very seriously, of course! Secret martial arts manuals, divine weapons, rare elixirs, and even the powerhouses of the Yuehua school will fight to accept you as a disciple. Forget about the apprenticeship. This disciple already has a Yuan Venerate as his master, so it's obviously inappropriate for me to take someone else as my master. Ling Xiao shook his head. However, the other rewards are quite tempting. I think I shouldn't rush to break through to the inner sect. It won't be too late to break through after the Moon Arrival Festival Pagoda Ascension Ceremony. Kid, why do you speak as if you can enter the inner sect at any time? Don't be fooled by the fact that you are already at the peak of the 9th level. There is still a long way to go before you become a half-step master. Even if you become a half-step master, it will be even more difficult to break through. Ling Xiao smiled but did not refute. Some things were better kept a secret as much as possible. After the Moon Arrival Festival, the surprise for these two seniors would definitely be even bigger than it was now. Thinking of this, he said, seniors are right. This disciple will cultivate well and strive to break through to the transcendent realm before the Moon Arrival Festival. In that case, we won't waste any more of your time. Hurry back and cultivate. The Moon Arrival Festival is only a few months away. Make good use of your time. The Pagoda Ascension Ceremony is ultimately a competition of strength. The stronger you are, the greater your chances of passing the ceremony. Yang Danlin exhorted. This disciple will take his leave. Upon hearing that his master had been imprisoned, Ling Xiao was even more eager to improve his strength than Yang Danlin and Wang Han Tianzuan. If he wanted to save his master, he had to at least be a sky being. He had to show others that he had unlimited potential. Otherwise, he wouldn't have a chance. The Moon Arrival Festival was undoubtedly a great opportunity for the disciples of the Yuehua school. There were no requirements, and any disciple could participate. However, in reality, only a small number of people had the ability to enter the Moonlight Pagoda. To the outer sect disciples, this was an opportunity, but in fact it was more like a pie that had been painted. However, Ling Xiao was going to turn this pie in the sky into reality. He knew very well that the Pagoda Ascension Ceremony was crucial. The Moonlight Pagoda was originally an ancient relic, so there was probably no lack of ancient inheritance within. Once he obtained these benefits, he would definitely reach a higher level on the path of martial arts. Furthermore, the disciples who could complete the ceremony would definitely become the focus of the Yuehua school's training. They would be valued more than ordinary inner sect disciples. The flame deity had amazed everyone during the Pagoda Ascension ceremony. When he had first joined the Yuehua school, he hadn't been too outstanding. There was also the Desperation Tower Master, the Inner Sect Moonlight Tower Master, the Moon Hall Master. These people were all outstanding talents. The losers of the same batch, such as Elder Bai and Elder Black, couldn't be compared to these people at all. Actually, for Ling Xiao, being able to complete the Pagoda Ascension ceremony had another layer of meaning. Yang Danlin and Wang Han Tianzuan had discussed this. If Ling Xiao could pass the Pagoda Ascension ceremony, they would do their best to nurture him and assist Ling Xiao in rescuing the Yuan Venerate. If Ling Xiao couldn't do it, then they would send Ling Xiao out of the Yuehua school, regardless of whether he agreed or not. They definitely couldn't let Ling Xiao encounter any danger in the Yuehua school. Ling Xiao had roughly guessed this, so he would work even harder to complete the ceremony. He definitely wouldn't become an unfilial disciple who would betray his master. Before the Moon Festival, Ling Xiao started to cultivate in seclusion. He didn't give up on his original plan because he was in a hurry to break through. Instead, he steadily followed his own steps. His cultivation speed was already very fast, so he definitely couldn't be overly hasty. 12 Golden Lotus Arts, Sky Dragon Golden Body, Snow Lotus Sword Art, the last move. This had become the cultivation direction he was most focused on at the moment. His internal strength, defense, and martial techniques had all improved. During this period, the other outstanding disciples of the outer sect had also undergone some changes. Chapter 331. Yuehua School had a rule that anyone who broke through to the transcendent realm before the age of 100 could automatically enter the inner sect and become an inner sect disciple. After all, after breaking through to the transcendent realm, one's lifespan would increase by 100 years, so 100 years would no longer be considered old. Therefore, this restriction was relatively loose. In fact, Zhaoji could have broken through long ago, but he had received a lot of guidance from Ling Xiao and understood that there were many problems in his cultivation, so he deliberately suppressed his cultivation and did not break through. During this time, he had solved these problems one by one, and his strength had greatly increased. Although he was only a first-layer Transcendent Realm cultivator now, after breaking through, even second-layer Transcendent Realm cultivators would not dare underestimate him. This was the result of accumulating experience. After all, first-layer Transcendent Realm cultivators were basically bullied in the inner sect. Grandmaster Bai Yun was the best example. After breaking through to the Transcendent Realm, Zhao Ji came to see Ling Xiao, mainly to thank Ling Xiao, but also to test his strength. However, he was still defeated in 10 moves. Before leaving, Zhao Ji smiled bitterly and said, "Senior brother Ling, you are already so strong now. If you break through to the Transcendent Realm, I'm afraid that no inner sect cultivator below the third layer Transcendent Realm will be able to defeat you." He had sparred with Ling Xiao many times, so he knew very well that if Ling Xiao did not deliberately want to break through all 3 of his potentials at the same time, he might have broken through much earlier than him. He guessed that Ling Xiao's talent was stronger than what he showed. Although he did not know why Ling Xiao wanted to keep such a low profile, he would not speak carelessly. From the bottom of his heart, he had already regarded Ling Xiao as a friend, and a very good friend at that. A few days later, Zhao Ci broke through to the Transcendent Realm and became an inner sect disciple. She also worshipped an elder of Northern Han Country's imperial family as her master. Lung Hao's talent was the best among their batch of disciples, but he had been taken away by Golden Light Heavenly Senior. After them were Zhao Ji and Su Ying. However, because Su Ying wanted to harm Ling Xiao, she was killed by Ling Xiao. Zhao Ji became friends with Ling Xiao and smoothly broke through to the Transcendent Realm. Next up were Zhao Ci and Cold Plum. Now that Zhao Ci had also broken through to the Transcendent Realm, Yang Kai wondered how Cold Plum was faring. Zhao Ci naturally wouldn't look for Ling Xiao. In her eyes, Ling Xiao was a heinous devil, a devil who killed without batting an eyelid. Especially after she heard that Ling Xiao had killed Su Ying and Wang Feng. Her view became even more firm. A few days later, there was news that Dai Yuling had broken through to the Transcendent Realm. Dai Yuling's talent wasn't high, but her cultivation method was different from ordinary people, so her speed nearly caught up to Zhao Ci. Of course, Dai Yuling's cultivation method benefited from her martial soul, personality, and knowledge. Others couldn't learn it. After all, she was a descendant of a medical family in the secular world. Before Dai Yuling went to report to the inner sect, she had also come to find Ling Xiao. She did not doubt Ling Xiao's talent. "Ling Xiao, I'm going to the inner sect first. You can't be too slow. Otherwise, there won't be anyone to protect me. Of course, this was just a joke. However, Ling Xiao's reply was very serious. If someone bullies senior sister, Jin Ming and the others are the best examples. Dai Yuling left with tears in her eyes. She didn't have any siblings since she was a child. Growing up was very lonely. Her parents were very strict, so her personality was relatively cold. She never thought that she would fall in love with a man. However, she couldn't help but be moved by Ling Xiao. Perhaps there was some love between a man and a woman, but more than that, it was gratitude, affection, and affection. In this nearly half a month, Ling Xiao naturally didn't stay idle. His 12 golden lotus arts smoothly broke through to the third stage. His celestial force had reached the entry level, and his power had greatly increased. At this time, because he could now borrow the power of 3 celestial forces, he could use them together. Basically, the power of Snow Lotus Sword Arts was invincible among martial arts of the same level. Wind and thunder were both offensive moves. Rain not only had an offensive effect, but also had a restorative effect. For Ling Xiao, this was tantamount to having another life-saving method. In addition, the final move of Snow Lotus Sword Arts, Snowstorm, had also begun to take shape. Basically, it could display about 30% of its power. Don't underestimate this 30% power. In fact, it was even stronger than the first 3 moves of Snow Lotus Sword Arts. It was simply terrifying. If combined with the 12 Golden Lotus Arts, instantly killing a first-order Transcendent Realm cultivator wouldn't be impossible. Moreover, this instant kill wasn't a sneak attack like the Imperial Sword technique, but a direct one. Of course, many people didn't understand his strength, and many people didn't understand his true intentions. In the outer sect, there were many discussions about him. Although Ling Xiao is the outer sect's first-order transcendent, I'm afraid this is as far as he goes. His talent is inferior to Zhao Ji and Zhao Ci, and he doesn't have a special cultivation method like Dai Yuling. That's right, it's a pity. I quite like this senior brother Ling. Although he's the outer sect's first-order transcendent, he never bullies us. Last time, he even gave me a few pointers, enlightening me. I heard that the outer sect is going to hire Ling Xiao as a special instructor. In fact, being an instructor isn't bad. If he can advance to the inner sect, he can become an instructor. In the future, he won't have to worry about food or clothing. Everyone respected Ling Xiao very much, but they also felt it was a pity. Ling Xiao actually heard all these comments. However, he didn't care. He was most clear about his own situation. Currently, the only obstacle was the Heavenly Dragon Golden Body. As long as he broke through to the 5th stage, he could immediately advance to the Transcendent Realm. However, he hadn't made any progress in his secluded cultivation, so he simply stopped cultivating and refined a few furnaces of pills. Then he asked Elder to gather the 29 half-step grandmasters among the outer sect disciples who had the potential to advance to the Transcendent Realm. He gave each of them 10 martial vein body sculpting pills that he refined. Then he spent another day solving the cultivation problems of these 29 people. With his mountain and river martial spirit, he could easily find the problems in these people's cultivation. While answering these people's cultivation problems, Ling Xiao also had a lot of insights. The thoughts that he had been unable to understand seemed to have been opened up in an instant. So he hurried back to his cave mansion and began to cultivate that night. Success! Ling Xiao didn't expect that after this cultivation, the Heavenly Dragon Golden Body would break through to the 5th stage so easily. At this stage, he was completely reborn. His whole body was transformed and upgraded. With the complete Heavenly Dragon blood, he could be reborn from a drop of blood and break through to the Transcendent Realm. Of course, at the same time, his cultivation also broke through the bottleneck and directly advanced to the peak of the 1st layer, Transcendent Realm. Originally, when he first broke through, his cultivation should have been at the early 1st layer Transcendent Realm, but because he had accumulated too much true qi, he directly advanced to the peak of the first layer, Transcendent Realm. Chapter 332. When Ling Xiao was promoted, he immediately used the template to hide his cultivation level at half step to master level. He didn't want to enter the inner door so early. Didn't Wanhan Tianzuan say that if an outer disciple passed the moon arrival festival tower ascension ceremony, then there would be additional rewards? Even if it was for this reward, he could endure it for a while. Anyway, it was just a few months' time. Just as Ling Xiao finished using the template and was preparing to consolidate his hard-earned cultivation, he suddenly discovered something. The mountain river martial spirit and his soul, which had been stagnant, had actually reached 100%. Rumble, rumble, what came from his body was a loud sound like an earthquake. He could feel that the mountain river martial spirit was undergoing some kind of special change. Ling Xiao totally didn't know what this change was. He was both anticipating and fearful. When he was in Sky Cloud City, Ling Xiao was very clear that his martial spirit wasn't an ordinary martial spirit. So every time it underwent a change, it would lead to a situation which was totally different from ordinary martial spirits. He looked into the mountain river world and discovered that the mountain river world had turned into an apocalyptic scene. Flood, earthquake, meteorite, volcano eruption. Terrifying scenes came one after another, as though some kind of energy was constantly leaking out. Just at this moment, Ling Xiao suddenly felt an intense pain coming from the depths of his soul. That kind of pain was even more terrifying than the rebirth of broken bones. He almost lost consciousness in an instant. His entire body was drenched in sweat and his face was pale. If it wasn't for the fact that he had already experienced the intense pain several times, he was afraid that he would have collapsed. Endure, endure, you must endure. He faintly felt that although the mountain river martial spirit's transformation was fierce, it wasn't a bad thing. To rebuild, it needed to be destroyed first. Perhaps the destruction this time was for the birth of a new one. He clenched his teeth as he sat there. His gums were filled with blood and his lips were bitten open. His hands were also filled with blood from his nails. This kind of pain, which was worse than death, lasted for nearly 2 hours before it gradually disappeared. Ling Xiao took a deep breath. The path of cultivation was truly not easy. If his will was not strong enough, he would have been finished by now. He looked at the mountain river world again. He was shocked to find that the mountain river world had already returned to peace. However, not a single blade of grass grew. It was just a world of ice and snow. However, something seemed to be nurtured within this thick layer of ice. He could even hear the heartbeat of the earth. The pain was gone, but was it over? Ling Xiao found it hard to believe. The rebirth after the destruction was only the destruction of the past. They had entered the Ice Age, but they had not been reborn. He checked his current situation. According to the state of an ordinary cultivator breaking through to the transcendent realm, when one's soul potential reached the transcendent realm, a spirit sea would be formed in one's mind. When one's internal force potential reached the transcendent realm, a chi sea would form in their dantian. When one's body potential reached the transcendent realm, all the acupuncture points in their body would be opened, forming a cycle with the 9 martial veins and meridians in their body, constantly absorbing world energy. The human body itself was an existence similar to the spirit sea and chi sea. The first kind of cultivators, true chi, came from the spirit sea and was mainly transformed from soul force. The second kind of cultivators, true chi, came from the chi sea. After the internal force was formed, it was refined by the chi sea. The third kind of cultivators, true chi, came from the outside, from world energy into the body, and then through the meridians and martial veins, it was transformed into true chi. Ling Xiao was different from these people. He had broken through to the transcendent realm with 3 potentials at the same time, so all 3 existed. This made his true chi richer, and of course more. Just ordinary cultivation alone was more than 3 times more than those who had broken through with only one kind of potential. The quality was also much stronger because of the condensation of the 3 kinds of true qi. The 3 kinds of true qi would eventually flow into the martial veins and be stored, becoming the source of energy for the cultivator to use martial skills. At present, his internal force cultivation method, 12 golden lotus arts, and defensive martial skill, heavenly dragon golden body, were not inferior to gold, grade top, grade, martial skills. Therefore, the amount of true qi produced by his qi si and the amount of true qi produced by absorbing world energy from his acupuncture points was much higher, and the quality was also higher. The true qi produced by his spirit si was a bit worse, because he still didn't have a soul cultivation method that could be compared to the 12 golden lotus arts and heavenly dragon golden body. Next, he had to get a soul cultivation method that was at least gold, grade, rare grade. Of course, it would be best if it was gold, grade top grade, or even gold, grade top grade. After checking his body's condition, Ling Xiao felt that the mountain river martial spirit's changes should not be over yet. Maybe after the glacier melted, there would be an even more terrible change, and at that time he would have to endure even more pain. It should not be over yet. However, although he thought so, the mountain river martial spirit was not moving, so he planned to take a rest and take a bath first. His body was covered in stinky sweat just now, and now his whole body was sticky. It was really uncomfortable. When he left the cave and found a hidden spring to take a bath, he found a tragic scene. When he jumped into the water, the entire spring instantly froze into ice. The thick layer of ice would not collapse even if a 10,000-ton giant beast stepped on it. Why can't I even take a bath? Strangely, this terrifying chill did not have the slightest effect on his body, and the sweat on his body did not freeze. However, as long as it was something external, no matter what it would be instantly frozen. This terrifying chill was even more shocking than Wang Han Tianzuan's chill. Ling Xiao even suspected that he could easily defeat a first-grade transcendent realm cultivator with this chill alone. This was not a martial skill, but it was better than many gold-grade martial skills. And it's starting again. Ling Xiao broke the ice and jumped out, then put on his clothes and rushed into the depths of the mountain. The mutation of the mountain river martial spirit might cause some special phenomenon. If he continued to stay in the Yuehua school, he might be suspected. With his ability, it was impossible for him to not be noticed. Therefore, he had to leave this place. Otherwise, if someone found out that he had the mountain river martial spirit, even if he did not die, his martial spirit would be forcefully taken away. With Ling Xiao's speed, he could run dozens of li in an instant. This time he ran for a full hour and had long left the Yuehua school's range and entered the border of the Dragon Submission mountain range. As mentioned before, the Dragon Submission mountain range was very big, and Tianfeng City was only at the edge of the Dragon Submission mountain range. The Yuehua school was in the depths of the Dragon Submission mountain range. His current position was closer to Tianfeng City. There were many terrifying monster beasts here, especially Class 9 monster beasts. However, when they saw Ling Xiao, it was as if they had seen an even more ferocious beast. They lay there, not daring to move. Chapter 333. Ling Xiao had once encountered a Herculean ape here. In the end, he had no choice but to flee for his life and hide in the Dragon Hall. Later on, it was the blue-clothed woman who rescued him that he was able to return to Tianfeng City. However, this time he also encountered a Herculean ape. This fellow was as obedient as a kitten. Ling Xiao needed to go into seclusion and was worried that others would disturb him, so he simply let the Herculean ape protect him. The Dragon Hall was still the same Dragon Hall as before, as if no one had ever come here before. In the past, Ling Xiao did not have much knowledge, so he did not see what this Dragon Hall was. Only now did he realize that this so-called dragon hall was actually the corpse of an ancient golden dragon, and the entrance was the corpse's mouth. This corpse was too big. He really did not think about it at first. When he walked into the dragon hall, he could feel a special connection between the golden dragon blood in his body and the corpse. The Herculean ape was lying outside. However, this time it was not to kill him, but to protect him. After finding the place where he used to cultivate in the dragon hall, Ling Xiao still did not dare to recklessly release his aura. He only activated the soul entry state and observed the surroundings for a radius of tens of miles. There were no powerful warriors. Only a few warriors wearing the divine sword sect attire were hunting there. He, Ling Xiao, was the supreme elder of the divine sword sect. When he saw these people, he actually felt a sense of intimacy. However, this was not the time to look for relatives. After he made sure that no one could disturb him, he closed his eyes. After another quarter of an hour, the mountain and river martial spirit finally underwent another change. The glacier began to melt in large amounts, and many places turned into a vast ocean. However, this time, the pain that Ling Xiao was worried about did not occur. Although the change was very fast and intense, there was no pain. It was just that the mountain and river martial spirit was extremely unstable, as if it could collapse at any time. Ling Xiao had to consume a large amount of true essence to protect the mountain and river martial spirit. He was very clear about the importance of the mountain and river martial spirit to him. No matter what, he had to protect the mountain and river martial spirit. As long as this change ended, there would be a day when the clouds would open and the moon would shine. This drastic change lasted for a full 2 hours before it finally stabilized. In the mountain river world, there was no longer a vast expanse of glaciers. Instead, there were various terrains and climates. There were glaciers, oceans, and continents. There were also golden snow lotuses and many other herbs and demonic beasts. Ling Xiao recognized that these were all things that he had implanted into the mountain river world, but there were no other plants or animals. The weirdest thing was that the dark cloud martial soul, the thunder bear martial soul, the giant sword martial soul, the blood shadow martial soul, and the ghost ship martial soul were all forcefully pulled into the mountain river martial soul and became solid inside. Dark clouds floated in the sky, and thunder bears ran on the ground. The heroic spirit wielding a giant sword was practicing martial arts there. The blood-red shadow was resting quietly in the dark. The ghost ship drifted in the dark sea of clouds. All of this was actually so harmonious. Ling Xiao seemed to have suddenly understood something. The mountain river martial soul that he had awakened belonged to someone else, so the fusion rate was not high and could only play a supporting role. But now, the fusion rate of the mountain river martial soul had reached 100% perfection with his body, so it completely belonged to him. His mountain river world was a blank. To what extent it would develop to, it would all depend on him to shape it. However, the 9 special abilities that he had once obtained did not disappear. Instead, they became even stronger. Furthermore, he did not need to use the mountain river martial soul. He could use them with a thought. This was the benefit of the mountain river martial soul fusing with a soul. The mountain river martial soul was him, and he was the mountain river martial soul. He did not even need to activate the soul enter state because he could enter the soul enter state at any time. Moreover, it did not consume any true essence. This had become his instinctive power. Too powerful. Ling Xiao could not help but be excited. He opened his eyes and was about to leave when he suddenly thought of something interesting. He walked out of the Dragon Palace. With a thought, a boundless illusory world suddenly appeared behind him. That was the external appearance of the mountain river martial soul. It was a world in itself and also a martial soul. Collect. As he chanted a word, the huge golden dragon's body began to slowly fly up and enter the mountain river world. However, during this process, Ling Xiao felt extremely uncomfortable. This was only a corpse, but to store it into the mountain river martial soul, it consumed almost 90% of his true essence. Success! The moment he succeeded, Ling Xiao almost collapsed to the ground. However, his face was filled with excitement. The golden dragon in the mountain river world exuded a terrifying and deep ancient aura. There was no need to doubt that this was definitely a golden dragon from the primordial era. Curiosity drove Ling Xiao to continue his attempts. He poured his blood into the golden dragon's corpse. At that moment, he finally felt the pain again. It was as if the blood was being sucked dry by the corpse, crazily pouring into the corpse. After a full 20 breaths of time, the pain completely ended. Ling Xiao sighed. If it was an ordinary person, he would have already said goodbye to this world after losing so much blood. However, his hard work was not in vain. Ling Xiao looked into the mountain river world and could see the blood flowing in the golden dragon's corpse. The originally stiff corpse actually gradually became lustrous and soft. He himself was perhaps just surprised. However, in the outside world, countless demonic beasts rushed over and surrounded him as if they were worshipping their king. Come back to life. Come back to life for me. Ling Xiao was looking forward to the feeling of a real, primordial beast coming back to life. This thing had already been integrated into his mountain river martial soul. In a sense, the awakened primordial golden dragon should also be a part of his soul. What's going on? Ling Xiao frowned. Although it seemed that the golden dragon had recovered its bodily functions and was no different from a living creature, it was still lying there motionless. It did not even have any aura of life. This caused Ling Xiao to be somewhat disappointed and also somewhat surprised. There must be something wrong. He frowned and thought about the mistakes he had made in the process. That's right. Suddenly, a look of joy appeared on his face. The reason why life was life, other than having a body, a soul was also essential. Although this golden dragon corpse still had a trace of primordial consciousness, it could not be considered a soul. Therefore, even if its body recovered, it could not be revived. Since what was missing was a soul, it would be easy. All martial souls were transformed from souls. Naturally, they could also be transformed into souls. Chapter 334. Ling Xiao sensed the 5 complete martial souls in his body. Ghost Ship, Dark Cloud, Giant Sword, Blood Shadow, Thunder Bear. These 5 martial souls were already complete soul entities. It was a pity that they were reduced to souls just like that. However, he could feel that once the golden dragon awakened, it would bring him greater benefits than these 5 complete martial souls. Furthermore, these 5 martial souls originally belonged to someone else. He was just borrowing them. If he didn't have them, he could just take them from other martial artists. In any case, in this mystic world, he was not afraid of enemies. People always faced all kinds of choices, and Ling Xiao was no exception. He was not an indecisive person. Since he had decided to do something, he would definitely make up his mind. Fuse! Ling Xiao released a part of his soul as the core of the golden dragon's soul. Then he fused the 5 martial souls into it, forming a complete soul. This soul fused into the corpse of the ancient golden dragon and absorbed the remnant consciousness of the ancient golden dragon at the same time. Buzz, at that moment, Ling Xiao felt as if he had turned into an ancient giant beast, overlooking the earth and looking down on everything as ants. In his mind, the era of the ancient golden dragon's life flashed past. That should be the ancient desolation era, before the emergence of human cultivators. Unfortunately, the consciousness left behind by the primordial golden dragon was fragmented, and its memories were incomplete. Thus, Ling Xiao had no idea how it died. But even so, this guy was still a treasure trove. In the memory of its body, there was a large number of immemorial divine runes, and these were undoubtedly magical powers from the immemorial era. Once cultivated, it would probably be more terrifying than immemorial martial arts. In addition, the terrifying aura of the ancient golden dragon had also fused into Ling Xiao's soul, causing his soul to become stronger and even have an immemorial aura. "Awaken for me!" Ling Xiao shouted in his heart. The ancient golden dragon in the mountain river world finally, slowly opened its eyes. At that moment, he seemed to feel the ground tremble, and some of the laws of the mystic world seemed to have been broken again. Thinking back carefully, when he awakened the mountain river martial soul, a similar situation had occurred. However, at that time, he was too weak and fainted immediately. In the end, he did not realize anything. But it was different now. The ancient golden dragon was a giant beast from the ancient desolation era. It should not have existed in the mystic world. So, its birth would inevitably cause some changes in the laws. And these changes in the laws would cause the mystic world to tremble. Of course, Ling Xiao did not know the details. He was just speculating. As the primordial golden dragon's aura continued to grow stronger, the trembling sensation became even more pronounced. However, the strange thing was that the Herculean ape and the countless Class 9 demonic beasts lying beside him did not seem to notice this situation. Could it be that Transcendent Realm and Transcendence Realm cultivators? Ling Xiao made a bold guess. Although his speculation, it was not accurate. Of course, transcendent cultivators, God, ancestors, God, art. But he was an exception. After all, this ancient golden dragon was born from his mountain river martial soul, so he could naturally feel it. The nearest large sect was the Yuehua school. At this time, the heaven transcendent cultivators of the Yuehua school were all scared out of their wits. They did not know what was happening outside. Inside the volcano palace, the flame deity who was recuperating suddenly howled in pain. The terrifying changes in the laws made him feel fear from the depths of his soul. Originally, the sect had given him a spirit fruit of heaven and earth, which allowed him to recover from the injuries that would have taken him a year to recover in a short month. And this world spirit fruit was the only one in the entire Yuehua school. It was enough to show how important he was to the Yuehua school. However, this time, the sudden attack of this terrifying aura completely disrupted his recovery rhythm, causing him to suffer even more injuries. Damn it! Damn it! The flame deity did not know why he was so unlucky. This meant that all his previous efforts had been wasted. Furthermore, he had suffered even more injuries. It would be impossible for him to recover without a year and a half. Meanwhile, at the top of the Moonlight Pagoda, the Yuan Venerate, who had also sensed this aura, was pleasantly surprised. He had been unable to use his full strength because of his chronic illness. In the end, he had been suppressed by the few old fogies from the Yuehua School's Law Enforcement Hall. However, what surprised him was that this aura that had suddenly appeared actually made him feel a sense of familiarity. His chronic illness had actually started to gradually recover. Good disciple? No, no, no. How is that possible? The Yuan Venerate shook his head. He found this absurd idea laughable. Even if Ling Xiao had broken through to the transcendent grade, it was impossible for him to have such an aura. Of course, he had not expected that Ling Xiao would actually use his mountain river martial soul and his own blood to save an ancient golden dragon. The aura of this ancient golden dragon had been affected by Ling Xiao. Therefore, it would feel malice towards its enemies. On the other hand, it would feel kindness towards its relatives and friends. As for those who were neither enemies nor friends, there would naturally be no malice or kindness. However, even if there was no malice, the terrifying aura still made all the martialists of the Sky Dragon continent tremble deeply. Fortunately, they were not as unlucky as the flame deity. They only trembled under this aura and did not dare continue what they were doing. Some people who were in the midst of doing evil even mistook the sudden appearance of this terrifying aura for a peerless expert. They were so frightened that they fled in panic and never did evil again. This was something that Ling Xiao had not expected. This terrifying aura caused many people who had done evil or attempted to do evil to put down their butcher's knives and repent completely. There was a God watching over them. They began to believe the truth of this sentence. This terrifying aura lasted for 2 hours before it gradually dissipated. The ancient golden dragon had been completely revived. Roar! The ancient golden dragon stood in the mountain river realm and let out a dragon roar towards the sky. At that moment, that roar penetrated the entire dragon, subduing mountain range, penetrated countless clouds, and even penetrated the nomological laws of the mystic world. Ling Xiao would never forget that terrifying roar for the rest of his life. It was simply too terrifying. Of course, to him, this dragon roar was terrifying, but it would not harm him. After all, the core of the ancient golden dragon's soul was actually a part of his soul. However, this might not be the case for other things. This dragon roar shattered the nomological laws of the mystic world and started to condense nomological laws that belonged to itself. The sun, moon, and stars underwent some changes because of this dragon roar. Heaven and earth also trembled because of it. This kind of domineering aura of supremacy really shocked him to no end. Chapter 335. That dragon roar was merely a very ordinary roar of an ancient golden dragon in the mountain river world. But in an instant it crushed the mystic world's laws and produced a law that belonged to itself. It was simply gods and demons fending off, extremely domineering. But this dragon roar sounded very loud to Ling Xiao, and the power was also very terrifying. But martial artists below Deva Realm could not sense it at all. Even Deva Realm powerhouses only felt that something seemed to have changed, but as for what it was, they were completely unclear. In the mystic world, only a few supreme powerhouses could clearly feel the shattering and rebirth of laws. Heavenly Dragon Continent's central region. A giant pillar that reached the sky stood there. On it, inscriptions flickered continuously, exuding an ancient and boundless aura. It was rumored that on the 13 continents there are similar things. Their names were Law Divine Pillars. The 13 Law Divine Pillars were the foundation that supported the mystic world's laws. No one knew what material they were made of, but no one had ever been able to leave the slightest trace of a scar on it. Deva Realm powerhouses could not. Grotto Heaven Realm powerhouses could not as well. Every time a law shattered, the Law Divine Pillars would sound an alarm, turning crimson, and emitting some kind of message that only Deva Realm powerhouses could sense. And at this time, the Law Divine Pillars on the Heavenly Dragon Continent already turned crimson red, as if burned red, the inscriptions on it flickering continuously. The urgent alarm signal was transmitted to the ears of every powerhouse above Deva Realm. The Law Divine Pillars actually issued an alarm. Could it be that some law was shattered? The last time the laws shattered, the mystic world suffered a great disaster, especially the human race being close to extinction. What kind of disaster will it be this time? Could it be that the mystic world is going to encounter some tribulation again? Near the Law Divine Pillars, one figure after another rushed over continuously. The terrifying aura made the nearby living beings tremble continuously. These were all Deva Realm powerhouses, rarely seen normally. This time, all of them actually gathered together. Boom! Suddenly, an absolutely powerful aura attacked from all directions, far surpassing all the Deva Realm powerhouses. Behind this person was a cluster of sunwheel phantoms, emitting an extremely terrifying and vast aura. On the ground, even peak Deva Realm powerhouses still had to kneel on the ground to greet. Greetings to Great Sun Realm Lord. Realm Lord, this was a title for Grotto Heaven Realm powerhouses, like a master or a heavenly venerable. All rise. The Great Sun Realm Lord slowly descended and stood in front of the Law Pillar. After that, he stretched out his right hand as the sun chakram behind him revolved. The blazing light from the chakram instantly fused into the law pillar. The law divine pillars began to tremble, the Deva realm lord. The great sun, realm lord, frowned as beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. It seemed that even a grotto heaven realm expert was insignificant in the face of a law pillar. The light from the sun became even more dazzling. The great sun, realm lord, closed his eyes and focused on conversing with the law god pillar. The blazing light shrouded the area, and the celestial Tiralites all stepped aside. They stood in the distance and looked at this supreme master respectfully. He was like the incarnation of the sun, the master between heaven and earth. His every move made the celestial realm cultivators tremble uneasily. Deva Deva, realm Deva Deva, realm Deva Deva, realm Deva Deva. The great sun realm lord is actually a real person. I thought he was just a legend. Yeah, if not for the law divine pillar's warning. The great sun realm lord wouldn't have shown himself. But what kind of warning did the law divine pillar send out? Could it be that the mystic world's laws were shattered by an external force? The reason why this person asked was because, according to ancient records, the mystic world's first calamity was due to an external force shattering the mystic world's laws. I'm not sure, but the great sun realm lord should be able to investigate clearly. After all, he is a grotto heaven realm powerhouse. His strength is truly terrifying. The Deva realm experts only dared to speak softly, afraid that they would disturb the realm lord. About an hour later, the great sun realm lord weakly retrieved the sun wheel. He didn't look at the other experts and muttered to himself, the mystic world's laws were indeed shattered, but it wasn't from the outside. It was from an internal force, and after it was shattered, it was reformed. His voice wasn't loud, but the Deva realm experts heard it clearly. An internal force from the mystic world? That's impossible. Who can break the mystic world's laws? Someone exclaimed. That's right. Who can break the mystic world's laws? You have to know that the mystic world's laws are more stable than the law divine pillars. The great sun realm lord was also shocked. When he was communicating with the law divine pillars, he could only faintly see a huge image. It was like a golden divine dragon, and it possessed an ancient aura that was even more terrifying than the law divine pillars. Ancient giant beast? The ancient era was divided into 3 periods. The first period was the primal chaos period. The world was in chaos, and other than energy, there was nothing else. The second period was the ancient desolate period. Ancient giant beasts were born from the world, and each of them had their own laws. The third period was the human king period. The human king ruled the entire mystic world and forged the 13 law divine pillars, establishing the mystic world's laws. Although this period was ruled by the human race, there was an abundance of species, so it was also called the myriad races period. Every giant beast in the ancient, desolate period had the strength of a human king. If it was really an ancient giant beast, then it was too terrifying. Ong, a dragon, roar suddenly sounded in the great sun realm lord's mind. His face instantly turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood on the ground, becoming even weaker. The ancient giant beasts have awakened. He used a mournful voice to roar at the heavens. Through the law divine pillars, all the experts in the heaven realm and above could hear his roar. Heavenly Court Continent, Jade Heaven Dynasty. This was the continent furthest away from the Sky Dragon continent, and Jade Heaven Dynasty was the most prosperous dynasty on this continent. The owner of this dynasty was not the human race, but the immortal race. One of the myriad races of the ancient era, they had absolute talent. The Jade Heaven Dynasty's imperial palace was actually floating above the 9 heavens, standing among the clouds. On Ju-Roar, see around the imperial palace, there were divine dragons, phoenixes, white tigers, black tortoises, cheelants, vermilion birds, Qingwan, and other immortal beasts flying around. And these things had already gone extinct on the Sky Dragon continent. Outside the palace, 9 dragons were pulling a carriage filled with boundless aura. There were a man and a woman sitting on the carriage. The man was wearing a crown, and the woman was wearing a phoenix crown. Their aura was filled with the domineering and majestic aura of a king. Standing there, they were like gods. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.